All right, well, good evening, everybody. This is Barney Arnold, and welcome to the Carlisle Select Board on Monday, February 13th. I'm being broadcast in the room. Yeah, wow. Okay, we have some new technology for those of you that are hybrid. Hopefully it means you can hear us better too. So I have with me four of the members of the board, and Nathan is joining us remotely. Hi, Nathan. And we also have our town administrator who'll be back just momentarily. Let me go through the agenda very quickly and then we'll come back and begin. So we have community input at 7 o'clock, appointments and resignations, followed by the ARPA committee. There are two recommendations that we're going to consider tonight. Then we will hear from the Public Safety Facilities Task Force about their recommendations. And that will be followed by a review of the FY24 budget and the annual town meeting warrant requests. At 9:15, we will have a discussion about a particular human resources bylaw change that may be on the town meeting warrant, followed by the town administrator's report, liaison reports, and a quick review of the warrants before we adjourn. There will not be any minutes to approve this evening. So going back to community input, I see we have some guests here in the audience. Is anyone here in person interested in offering a comment during the community input time? Is there anyone joining us remotely that would like to make a comment now? If you would like to, you can raise your hand or turn on your video and or do your chat. Doesn't look like it. All right, well then we will move on. So let's begin with the appointments and resignations. We have no resignations. We do have one appointment. Ryan, do you want, no, just the first one is about for a staff position. Ryan, would you like to take care of explaining that one to us?
Yes, thank you. So the DPW foreman was advertised, this open position, which has been open for a bit now, was advertised internally. We had three strong candidates from our DPW, Jim or James Hall is seen here, Scott and Shane, all hardworking members of our department. We were thrilled with their vision for the department, their leadership, their experience, their knowledge, and their candor during the interviews. All three of them would have been excellent selections, but Jim, who's been serving as our interim, had the requisite experience and vision for what the DPW foreman could do and some improvements that we could make. He has served in this community for 28 years and was also recommended highly by Gary for his abilities and his service and his growth as an employee over those 28 years. So we're very pleased to recommend to the select board James Hall for appointment as a permanent appointment as our DPW foreman.
We have a motion, please.
I move that the select board appoint James Hall to fill the vacant Department of Public Works foreman position effective immediately.
Have a second.
Second.
Thank you. So any discussion? I think I probably speak for the whole board in saying that we're really glad that James is going to take this position, and we know he's going to do a great job for the town. So thank you. All those in favor, let's see, we'll do a voice vote.
Roll call.
I mean, a roll call vote. That's what I meant to say. Did I say that? No. Roll call vote, please. Arnold, aye.
Brown eye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Snell, aye.
Excellent. The motion passes unanimously. And then we have two appointments to the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Who would like to move those appointments?
I move that the select board vote to appoint Kath Hardcastle of 38 Litchfield Drive and Dave Butcher, 60 Ledgeways, to serve on the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Nathan. And if you look in your packet below that, you'll see, well, couple pages down, you'll see the letters of interest from both Dave and Kath, and also a letter from Debbie Bentley representing the Environmental Sustainability Committee, saying that they voted unanimously to support the appointment of these two members. Is there any more discussion? All right, let's do this by a roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. The motion carries unanimously.
Just one quick question. I didn't do it in the middle because it didn't impact how I would vote, but does this fill out that committee?
Good question. I think it probably is close to it. I don't remember the exact number that are on there now. This may make it 10.
How many did we offer?
I think it was 10.
Debbie Bentley she's clear.
Oh, hi, Debbie.
You're saying yes.
Do you want, you're saying, do you want to make a quick comment, or are you saying yes, that does fill out the committee?
Yes, it does fill out, it brings our number up to 10, which
Okay.
is the number that was originally on there.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Debbie. Yeah. I having been the liaison to the committee, I think both of them are going to be great additions. Okay, so let's move on then to the ARPA requests, and I see that Scott Triola is here. Hi, Scott. Yeah, please come on up and join us. Scott is the chair of the ARPA committee, and Kate Reed is also a member of the committee, and John Kaufman is the third member of the committee. So tell us about these two recommendations, please.
Thank you very much. We have the ARPA committee has two recommendations for your consideration this evening. I'm providing an updated handout because the committee met this morning and voted on the second recommendation. So the first recommendation, vote one, is that the ARPA committee recommends that the select board approve $2,800 in ARPA funds to be used for Stop the Bleed training workshops as requested by the Board of Health. And previously I had provided their request form. Essentially, this would provide funding for 4 workshops that would be conducted by the public health nurse to do these Stop the Bleed workshops, which are about having people, training them how to stop bleeding in accident situations. And I think Kathy might be in the meeting, but essentially one of the things we were talking to her about was making sure that, because these are essentially, we view them as pilot training sessions that could be funded through ARPA initially, really think about how those 4 workshops are strategically used. And so they have a plan for each workshop to make this available to key people in the town, to the schools, to residents. So they have what I would consider a pretty well thought out plan about how to best utilize these 4 workshops. And if they're successful, then more workshops could be done, potentially funded through individuals paying a fee to do it, like we do for some other training programs, or perhaps it becomes part of the budget, or they've looked at grants. There's not much there, but essentially this would provide the funding to do the first 4. And I don't know if you want me to also move on to the second vote, or if you want to consider the first one.
Well, let me pause for a moment and see if anybody has any questions about that one. Oh, right, ask for my question. You're on that, right, okay. Well, I
How
think-
many people would be able to attend each session?
I believe, and if Kathy, if you're out there, I think it was on the order of like 10 to 15.
I'm just looking at my notes here. It's 8 to 10 attendees per workshop
Okay,
with 1 public health nurse.
right, okay.
Okay, thank you.
The idea was also that, it could be scout groups and then the fundraising could be later, for instance, the scout group could pay a fee down the line, or they themselves could, learn to do some of the training. So it's meant to spread out
Mhm.
into the community.
All right. Let's see if we can vote on both of these together. So let's go ahead and talk about the second one.
Sure. The second one is a request from the town accountant, and that is for fees that are required for an external single audit, which is not typically something the town requires because it's tied to meeting a threshold of federal funds. But due to the large amount of ARPA funds, we now are required to do this additional audit. And so this fund, these funds, this $4,750 would be used to pay for that. And so the ARPA committee discussed this morning and took a vote, and we recommend that the select board approves $4,750 in ARPA funds to be used for, this is for fiscal year 22 external single audit as requested by the town accountant. And I'll also note that the committee supports using the ARPA contingency administrative account for this expense, subject to the town accountant's agreement that this is an eligible administrative expense. We voted in favor 3-0. We have approximately, if you recall, we approved a contingency in admin funds a while back almost a year ago. We have used very little of that. We have about 22,000 remaining, and I think it's in the handout. And we had previously talked about using that account for this, and I emailed Kelly today, and she agreed that we could use the contingency administration fund. So we don't have to create a new account. It would just come out of that, and there's plenty of funds in that. And so we just wanted to provide that additional guidance for Kelly, and she responded today and said that that would be appropriate.
Okay, good. So do we need to include that second line in the motion, do you think?
I don't know. I
We
think
can
it's,
always do so just to be on
yeah,
the safe side.
I wasn't sure, so I just included it.
Yeah. Okay,
I think it would be helpful. And then, I think Kelly is very buttoned up in her process and paperwork. So I think it's good to just have that,
Yeah.
the record.
okay.
Yeah, it was originally contemplated that administrative, that we thought we were going to have an extra audit. We asked for that administrative budget, cover that sort of thing. But then when we finally got the bill, there was a little question is like, should we spend that money on it or not? Is it really, so this is putting I would say the belt along with the suspenders.
Yeah, especially when you're having an external audit, to have the audit,
Yeah.
a good paper trail for the actual audit funds is probably not the worst idea.
So this is kind of why we're here.
Got it. Okay. Any discussion about this or questions?
My only
It just, I'm sorry.
was relative to the ARPA dollars. And can you just refresh my memory? There are like 4 major categories that they covers, and maybe you don't have.
Well, so ARPA, we as a town had received, and I do have the numbers in front of me, just under $1.5698 million in ARPA funds. We designated the entire amount to revenue replacement, so we can use those funds for any government expense. So we're not tied to any particular category or eligibility. As long as it's a valid government expense, we can deploy those funds with the select board approval on anything the town spends money on, essentially. To this point, we've approved 835,000 of that. We have 734,000 remaining, and we can speak briefly about that after
Yeah.
this vote, just to give you kind of a look down the road a little bit, very briefly.
Okay, so Dathan, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, well, we were talking about, the two ARPA requests and, the motions. And I think somebody said, do we need to add the second line in that? I'm just wondering, what second line are we referring to? In
that's
each
right.
of the motions in the package, I only see one line.
I'll read it to you. It's just indicating that it can come out of that administrative account that Scott was referring to. So the motion, well, why doesn't somebody make the motion, including that second line, and then Nathan can hear it then?
Okay, so you guys have something I don't have that.
I don't
Yeah,
have it. I don't-
yeah, yeah,
I'm-
yeah.
Okay, all right, that makes sense then. Okay,
This-
I move that the select board vote to approve $2,800 in ARPA funds to be used for the Stop the Bleed training workshops. And the other is this, to move that the select board approves $4,750 in ARPA funds to be used for the fiscal year 22 external single audit. More than I need to
Yeah,
add?
then the little second
Okay.
sentence. is the
Select board
relevant one.
supports using the ARPA contingency administrative account for this expense, subject to the town accountant's agreement that this is an eligible administrative expense.
You need-
second.
But Kelly said it was. It's like
She did, but this
the
was. written
Department of
before-
Redundancy
Before you
Department.
checked with her, right?
Belt suspenders, right?
Yes.
This was written before we got the answer back from her today.
I think we should amend the motion to not be redundant.
Oh, it just would be giving people comfort.
All right.
David,
Done.
All right, may I have a second, please?
I did, second.
Thank you. All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call
Somebody
vote,
stand up
please.
For there.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, aye. Lighting.
Modell,
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Okay.
excellent. Both, the motion carries. So both of those ARPA
We like it.
requests are approved.
Lighting.
Great.
Yeah, so Scott, yeah, tell us a little bit about the fund and where you think,
Yeah.
what's to look forward to.
Again, this is just, we have a couple of minutes. So you had asked to provide if there was an update on the actual expenditures. So what I handed out and what Nathan, what you don't have, I handed out a hard copy and I can send it via email is the expenditure report that Kelly provides to the ARPA committee each month. So this is current as of the end of January. And we reviewed this as an ARPA committee 2 weeks ago. And essentially what I want to highlight is that, so at the bottom, you can see the total approved by the select board and the total like received by Carlisle, a total available, 603,000. On the right side, you can see the actual expenditures for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. And then you can see what's available of what was approved. And you can see that the majority of funds that were approved are still available. So we've essentially checked in with all of these different projects. And the bottom line is that we expect the money for the most part to be spent for every project. In some cases, especially the capital projects, none of the funds have been expended because the projects aren't done and or we haven't gotten the bill yet. And I did email Jerry today, and I know Jerry's back there. For example, the Gleason RTU was one where early on, we weren't sure if we would be able to use ARPA funds because that was procured prior to ARPA, and ARPA requires federal procurement policies be followed. And I just confirmed with him today that Andy from TMS had reviewed the process and we can in fact use ARPA funds. So that's $124,000 that is approved. We will be using that for the Gleason RTU. We just haven't gotten the bill yet. The School Wilkins project, if you'll recall, we took a step back to do a study. That study is ongoing. We expect all that money to be spent. So there isn't anything I would point to here where we would say, let's amend or pull back any funds. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. And, looking forward, what I'm thinking about, and I'm just speaking personally, is that, if we have now a little less than $742,000 available for ARPA, we're currently in the process, the finance committee will be meeting with the select board of getting a much, a good handle on the fiscal 24 capital requirements. Work is being done to get a tighter look at the 5-year capital plan and fiscal 25. And I think as part of that process, what I'm doing is, wearing 2 respective hats to say, which projects do we think could or should be funded using ARPA funds, which capital projects that are required should go before the town as part of the capital warrant, and really come up with a plan over the next, by June, where we say, look, let's keep X number of dollars in reserve for ARPA for unexpected things or new ideas like that are brought forth for the Council on Aging or the Board of Health to help the community. But we don't want to be stuck in a situation where we have a lot of funds and we want to do a capital project. We see the lead times involved. We do have to commit funds by December 24th. They have to be expended 6 months after that. So we may want to really, by the end of this calendar year, really know how we're spending the bulk of our ARPA funds. And so I think as the capital plan comes together, as the budget planning comes together, I think looking at which things we want to fund through ARPA versus put it on the warrant and bring to town meeting is going to be a crucial question. So we're not doing that tonight, but I expect that to happen over the next month, especially for fiscal 24. And there are ample number of projects we can use for ARPA funds. There's no lack of opportunity to use the funds.
But are you guys, I think I agree with that, but are you guys guiding, I realize you're wearing 2 hats, sort of FinCom or Ryan? We're having a lot of conversation tonight. We're going to have a pretty lengthy conversation about capital expenditures that are on the budget.
Yep.
And we have as Ryan is not a big fan of it yet, but we do have a multi-year list. Are you flagging those things on the near term of that list that?
Yeah.
Okay, but you've not shared that yet, right?
No, and honestly, it's, FinCom is meeting on Thursday of this week, and part of what we're getting we have a revised capital plan from the school, so we just got to get the whole list, and there are things on there, for example, we received the request today for the phone system as an ARPA request. That's one where, it's $62,000, something I think.
It's also on our list tonight, right?
Yeah.
So,
But there's other things like
Yeah.
the school elevator that is time sensitive. That may be one where we say,
Okay.
because it's time sensitive
right.
and it fits well within that structure, maybe we
Yeah.
use ARPA funds, or we look to use ARPA funds for that. Other
Okay.
projects, due to their nature of the procurement, might not be well served
So
to be ARPA.
Basically, you got to spend the money by roughly a year from now.
Yeah, and we don't want to spend it all today, but
But
we
you
also,
don't want to leave it on the table.
we won't leave it on the table. But again, if we use it for capital, we approved the Gleason RTU a year ago, and we still haven't, the lead times are long. And so if we're looking at, if we have the mid to say the end of December 24, we
Yeah.
better have that project greenlit by a year before then.
Are there any on the current list that you see, or maybe Bill or Jerry, anybody that's close to that, where we run a risk that those already approved won't make the June 2024 deadline?
I don't think so.
It's not June 2024. It's December of,
No, you have to
Or-
expend by
Oh,
June.
by
No.
June 2024. You have to commit by December 2024.
Right, but you have to expend by,
By June 2020, 6 months after that.
right. So no, 24. We've,
25.
so we actually have a year and a half.
We have 2 fiscal
Oh.
years.
Okay, we have a lot of time. Okay.
Well, a lot of time, but again, it could
Yeah,
be
it goes
18
by
months.
fast.
It
Yeah,
could be 18 months between approving and actually getting the bill, and we don't want to be stuck with, right? And so, I mean, just long lead times. And I just think we have to be, strategic about it. And we're
Yeah.
going to know enough, I think, about our capital plan in the next few months that,
Okay.
and if
We can
maybe
plan it out.
we start a plan earlier, just so that we know we're getting in.
hmm
So there's some moving parts there, but that's what we'll be discussing in the next month to 2 months versus in a very discrete request like tonight.
And we, we have to remember, we can use it for any government expense, but we cannot put it in any kind of stabilization fund or, savings. So it actually has to be spent.
And we want to spend it on things that we know. We have done some supported programs that are not part of our normal budgeting process. But, especially if we're doing capital projects, we really want to focus on things we know we have to do as a town.
Good. Any further questions of Scott? We got just a couple of minutes before we're going to move on.
Nice TVs, by the way.
Yeah.
ARPA money.
Everywhere.
This is PEG funds.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Scott.
Yes.
And you, Kate.
Thank you for coming, Scott.
All right. Well, good.
I can see that I am giant on 2 screens behind you guys.
And you're even more giant in the one right in front of us.
Yeah, you should.
Yes, you are all around us, Nathan. And the pink shirt shows up
Yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah.
So,
And you can hear us for a change, I take it.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wow.
It's a little daunting though, seeing myself in the room.
yeah. All righty. Well, Public Safety Facilities Task Force, I see, is here in force. Please bring up chairs if you want to get a little closer. Lee or Tom or Bill, who else is here? Yeah. So, anybody on, the Zoom from,
There's an extra
the
mic.
committee?
Want it?
Yeah. I worked in television and I don't think I've ever seen this many television. And that wasn't a leech.
This is the joint meeting?
Well, I think you all posted this as a joint. Yeah. Yeah, so we have Christine Lear and Jerry Lerman here as the chairs, and You may, happy to have you introduce the others. Are you, did you post this as a joint meeting? So would you like to open the meeting? Or do you have a quorum or?
We definitely have a quorum.
Okay,
The whole gang's here.
okay.
No, ink might be online. I would like to call the Public Safety Facilities Task Force meeting to order at 7:27 PM. The members of the task force are Tom Bellotta, myself, Jerry Lerman, Bill Rizzo, Lee Stores, and Ingo Segvari.
Segvari.
And I should say, my name is Christine Lear. We voted at our February 7th meeting on the recommendations that we're bringing to you tonight. We did, you have this all written in your packet. These recommendations were developed after a detailed examination of the current police and fire stations. It is our conclusion that neither of these buildings addresses the needs of the departments at this moment in time, and they certainly will not adequately meet the needs going forward. We won't go through all the details that we went through with you on December 13th. I'm sure that's your nighttime reading already. We have determined that a combined public safety building would be too costly to pursue. None of the existing town-owned lands were deemed suitable, and so it also required the town, that's a good idea, for town to purchase a piece of property. So that wouldn't be helpful at this point. If we were to build on the site of either existing station, we would have to, either existing station, we'd have to find a temporary location for those services. But we're not recommending that at this point. So if a completely new structure were built for, we did not consider the possibility of regionalizing either police or fire, as it was outside the scope of our mandate. We assumed that the police department would continue to operate in the same manner it does today, allowing for future growth due to Carlisle's growing population. The possibility of regionalizing dispatch function was also discussed, but we believe would not achieve a significant reduction in either staffing costs or space requirements. As for the fire department, the unique character of the fire department, of Carlisle, no fire hydrants and on-call firefighters make the equipment and the staffing requirements not amenable to regionalization. So to summarize, we've tried to examine all the possibilities for a fire station and the police station. From the options we've examined, we have agreed to make the following recommendations to the select board. Beginning with the fire station, because the building codes and the structural issues make it too costly to build on top of the existing fire station, as so many of us thought it was possible. We recommend that a new structure be constructed adjacent to the existing structure. There is adequate space on the existing site to make this possible. We've talked to the town building inspector, who agrees that this option is worth exploring and has the following benefits. No acquisition of new property. It would be less costly than building a completely new building, since the existing structure would still be in use. Building an annex or a separate building rather than an addition will avoid triggering costly requirements such as adding a sprinkler system to the existing structure. The fire department could continue to operate out of the existing structure while the new construction is underway. It will allow for transition from an on-call fire department to a full-time department at some time in the future. And some of the existing infrastructure, like the wells, the septic, et cetera, will be used by the annex structure as well. To further explore this possibility, we recommend that the select board fund a feasibility study of about $20,000 that would determine the details of this project and the estimated cost. We have a sketch provided by Chief Brian Soros, that would be a starting point. If the study determines that the cost is reasonable, the next step would be to seek funding from the town to develop a complete design document and put the project out for bid. Should I just keep going and then we'll come back?
Yes, let's do the whole thing and then,
Okay.
thank you.
For the police station, we recommend that the police station be renovated on its existing site to provide the functionality and expansion capability that is lacking in the existing building. As with the fire station, this approach has the following benefits. No acquisition of new property. The police department could continue operating in the existing structure while the new construction is underway. It is less costly than building a completely new building, since most of the existing structure would still be used. And No new infrastructure or wells and septics or electricity is required. There are several possibilities for this approach that need to be explored due to the size constraints of the site, which is what we've learned all the way through. We knew this at point one anyway. Parking at the police station has always been an issue. So if the footprint of the building is expanded in any direction, additional parking will need to be provided. Several interesting solutions to this problem have been presented that require further exploration. One, allow the building to extend closer to Lowell Street, either by way of a variance or extending the town center business district to include the police station. Or building additional parking spaces behind the existing structure, either to the wetlands or behind the town burial ground. Both of these options have intriguing possibilities and deserve further exploration. Just like the fire station, we're recommending that the select board fund a feasibility study of about $20,000 that would determine the details of this project and estimate its cost. We have a preliminary design for the police station renovation that was prepared by TBA Architects in 2020 that would provide a starting point. The TBA design was based on the assumptions that the footprint of the existing structure could not be significantly increased. The purpose of the feasibility study would be to determine what can be done if that constraint is relaxed. If the study determines that the cost is reasonable, the next steps would be to seek funding from the town to develop a complete design document and put the project out for bid. The only other thing that we wanted to add was that since the expansion of the fire station and the expansion of the police stations will both generate a need for additional parking, we think this provides an opportunity for the town. The Public Safety Facilities Task Force explored the Conant land behind Town Hall as a possible location for a new police or fire building. Although there were several problems on siting a new public safety building there, it seemed to present an opportunity to expand the parking for the entire center area, including Town Hall, police station, fire station, as well as businesses in the town center. Though this was beyond the scope of our charter, we believe that a parking study of the town center area would fit in nicely with the needs of the expansion of the police and fire stations. There you go.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. Sounds
Very
great.
thorough, So I'm surprised if there aren't any. See you guys later.
Maybe we should go back and take these one at a time. So the fire station is first, in your, description here, which we very much thank you for. And I know this is whittling down to 2 pages, what you all spent hours and hours discussing and researching and exploring. And so I appreciate, I know we all do, how much work went into coming to this set of recommendations. With the fire station, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what are the needs of the fire station that would be met by having an adjacent building?
Well, without the other study in front of me, but, and guys, you can all chime in. We found that when they did Johnson Roberts did this initial study for us of the fire station doesn't have the pressurized zones that every fire station should have, because there are a lot of toxins in the air during a fire, especially in newer construction. Firefighters are exposed to these, and right now that stuff just goes right back into our fire station. I mean, Brian does a great job trying to get all that stuff off in the garage portion, but there really should be 3 different zones of pressurized areas so they can clean off the chemicals in one, and then they can work with clean up what they have used while they're, and then of course like an area where they can work or their families can wait for them if they're at an emergency. So that was the biggest glaring thing to me. And then of course if you've ever, yeah, it's just a space issue. There's no real training space for them. Part of the, if you go to a regular fire station where they're fully staffed, these people spend a lot of time together. And what that really is doing, it's not just making chili, it's really making a team. It's giving these firefighters and emergency workers a chance to really collaborate on things so that when they're in the actual work that they're doing, they know each other well and have built a trust and a relationship. And Brian Soros, Chief Soros, has tried very hard to do that in our building, but he has no space. So ideally, he would like to be able to say to people, come and work in this cubby all day. You know, instead of doing your work from home at home, come and do it here, or come and work on something with that we're working on here at the fire station, which also lends us to the fact that if we have to go to a fire department that's not a volunteer fire department, we would then have the space for bunks and office space for our full-time staff to be in that building like a typical fire department. Anything else, guys?
Well, they don't have enough space for the equipment they have right now. And in fact, the ambulance into the space, they had to take the bumper off it so that it could adequately fit in the minimal of space that's available. And if you walk around in there, it's really remarkable how close packed all the equipment is. There is some equipment that's parked outside because they have no place to put it. If any new pieces of equipment are acquired and the old pieces are retained, then they'll have to be parked outside as well. So there are two main space requirements. One is space requirement for equipment, and the other is space requirement for people.
One other thing is the bathrooms.
Right.
Built at a time when
Yes.
there was predominantly a male firefighting force, and now it's obviously not only co-ed, but I think it's what, 30% are
Yeah.
female. And so they have one single bathroom with showers. And so they have a little sign that they turn depending on who's going to be using it.
The tour.
It's like the clean and dirty sign on your dishwasher, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Other questions about the fire station?
I just wanted to say I'm still willing to pursue getting the land for temporary storage of things during construction if they need it. That they did have some information they needed, but I did have somebody that was willing to work on that.
Okay.
Let me know.
It's always good to have a plan B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Dave?
one quick question, if I may, Barney. So how sure are we that the septic would cover this new building?
That's one of the issues that needs to be addressed in a feasibility study.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought that this said that that one of the benefits was that the septic could still be used. Okay, so that's something that would be
A
addressed
possible
then.
benefit. I mean, whether the existing well would be adequate for a larger building, whether the existing septic would be adequate are all things that need to be examined. There is a possibility that they will be. There also is the possibility they won't.
I would
Okay,
venture to guess
Okay.
that it won't, because as I recall for the police station, just because they didn't have more people, but they put more lockers in, that made their septic out of compliance, even though the lockers aren't, because it's done on the basis of the number of lockers. So I'm going to guess
Even,
that.
even if the septic system has to be expanded, there are possibly some savings to be had for taking the existing system that's in place and adding on to it.
okay. So number 6 of this is really just that that could be a benefit. It's not definitely a benefit.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions on this one? Just a general comment. So, the feasibility study, so, I believe when we initially talked about this, it was more in the order of $12,000 for the study, and I see here it's 20,000 for this one and then 20,000 for the police station. And how did you arrive at
The
that
reasoning on
number?
that is
Yeah.
because the gentleman who gave us the estimate to do the study just before we did the report to you last time, is a friend of the town. And we believe that he helps us out when he can by not charging us what a typical architect might have charged, architectural firm. So I think that that number is a number that's a little bit safer, considering that we will put this out to bid because it's over $10,000, that it might not be. And we're
Mhm.
going to rewrite the scope with Ryan, so.
Okay. Thanks. So then in discussing the police station, just a quick question from me or not, is about the TBA architect study in 2020, which you referred to here, talks about the renovations that they sort of put into a preliminary design. And are those renovations to the building itself that are beyond the parking and storage needs that we've been talking about? Yeah.
Wasn't a preliminary design.
No, that was a,
Construction documents ready to be bid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. So could you all hear that? They were construction documents. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same question, Barney. It's, if we had this, I mean, I remember it was going to town hall. I mean, it was going to town meeting. Are those designs not adequate now for the police department?
I don't think that we feel like with, first of all, I think you'd be crazy not to relook at this with current knowledge. And I think that, or we believe that, if we take a different approach to this by looking at the property differently, because there's a chance under the business district or the, that we could possibly use more of the site for the building. I think we want to be very respectful of the historic nature of that neighborhood, but I think we should also look creatively at that if there's a different way to look at the variances for that piece of property. Do you want to say something?
John Mativier also indicated he felt that there's new building code issues that might make the TBA proposal not valid.
Oh, boy. Okay. Okay.
He's not sure of that, but he said you definitely have,
Oh, it's-
there are some
Uh-huh.
issues.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's a small chance, but one possible outcome of the feasibility study is that the TBA plan is just fine if we do some other things for parking.
Mm-hmm.
But all the choices should be examined carefully so we can come up with the best solution.
And are you still thinking, I think maybe this didn't get discussed when you came before us, and maybe I've just heard this since then, reading about the work you've been doing and your discussions. Is this second study around the police station still with the idea in mind that you are trying to make it a usable facility for at least the next 10 years? And this is not with the idea that it would be something that might be useful to the town for, say, 30 years? Are you thinking this has an end life?
No, I know, I think this is a long-term, I mean, with the new possibilities, I think what's a potentially long-term solution. If we can address the parking issue and find the parking in town.
Yeah.
And we can in fact expand the building envelope, but which we could do if we can get the building district or variance. It's a long-term solution, it's a permanent solution. As long as any solution is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is what we know.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little change in your thinking, I think, right? From,
I mean,
yeah.
John Fisher, before he left, said the TBA proposal is not going to be long-term if you can't address the parking and other issues, but now some new solutions have come for I mean, the parking looks like a solvable problem if we're willing to do some things, and
Uh-huh.
that's a huge change.
And I see a reference in here to the town town burying ground. Yeah, so is that so you say either into the wetlands or behind the town burying ground? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. It was after we presented to you, the select board, the select board suggested that we look behind town hall.
Right.
And so we did, Barney, you were able to attend with a lot of other people. Ryan came, showed us where everything was and walked us around, and even most people in this room probably went on that walk with us. And so I think at that point, we learned that there are other things that are needed in this area of the town, meaning for town hall and things like that, and that the parking was inadequate and there might be storage issues. And so I think what we're really saying is we shouldn't look at these two buildings in a silo at all. And that perhaps there should be a study on the back area of town hall and how it connects to fire and police. And then I know the COA and Human Services came in and asked for their needs. And so, it's out of our purview, but it seems like a good time to sort of get all these ideas on the table. And then maybe over a few years, parse out how these needs can be met in a plan that's done with the whole area between these buildings back here. And part of that is the parking that, I know that the police don't really want their parking away from their building. But their high points are when shifts change over, then they have kind of twice the staff because they're
Nurses,
both there at
yeah.
the same time. And I think that happens 3 times a day. In the middle of the day one is the really tough one. So there may be a way, if parking was up at behind town hall for the police, that they could work through that shift in stuff, but it would mean that they could park there. And maybe possibly a storage unit there as well with cameras that could be seen. Although we might not need it if we can change the building, right? Yeah. So yeah, we were very excited about, some of us are very excited about the prospect of looking at that whole area.
Other questions?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that that I'm understanding. So what you were just talking about was that the last thing in this recommendation, which was the further recommendations, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just a, hey, you should do this. Does the study depend upon that?
No.
Okay.
Except the parking might, yeah.
Well, the parking, the police station to be used as a long-term solution requires a parking
Right,
solution.
yeah.
So in essence, yes. I think.
Do you follow that?
Yeah, well, it seems to me like in this proposal, it's where, we have the TBA, but we're asking somebody to look at it because there's a relaxed, relaxed requirements because the footprint of the building may be able to grow because the parking has been resolved. What do we do if we do the study and behind the burial grounds doesn't work and going over the wetlands doesn't work? But our new study is a larger building. Have we done really a third study on the police station and we still can't do anything? That's just what I'm concerned about. Is there a way we could do this where we know at the end of this that, I'm supportive of the study as long as at the end of the study, we know that we will have something that we know would be actionable, even if these other, things that are out there, like parking over wetlands or parking behind the cemetery, don't work out. Otherwise, we've just kind of done a third study.
Right, Nathan, I think one of the requirements of the study is to include parking, because that's one of the main drivers why the TBA report was so tight, if you will, and may not have worked well. So this study will have to require that parking is addressed when they do the look at the building, the expansion of the building. As if
Okay.
parking done.
So that the parking is completely integrated into this study. It's not a study of an expanded footprint of the building.
Right, yes, for the police station.
It's all okay. I thought that, parking was going to be done differently than the study for the building.
But
Yep.
the overall, looking at parking in the town center as a whole is something that could be done in a phased way. The immediate need is to solve the parking issue for the police. At the fire station, if the building expands on the footprint there, that will take up some of their parking space, but they have some areas that they can expand parking area that isn't paved now that could become parking.
Will that
Okay.
be addressed in the study
That would, yes.
that concerns the fire department, parking.
But
for
they're
them
also,
as well.
but looking at the parking situation at town hall as well,
Mhm.
it became very enticing to try and solve the problem as a whole problem. So providing parking for the police station, for the fire station, for town hall, for the town center area as a whole,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that we need to do it all at the same time, but having a plan on how to make that happen, I think would be beneficial.
Mhm.
Just to give you a
Okay,
sense.
okay.
Just to give you a sense of how this thinking, and this is why we added this little, we'd also recommend. Think about when you come to vote at town hall. It's a wonder that there are not more dinged cars when you come up to vote. It's so busy. A study could possibly address that issue, help the police, and move the flow of traffic better back here. So I think that we were excited about the problem that this may solve if we looked at this in a bigger scale.
But just to make sure that I'm understanding, is this study tackling that parking? Or is this study just looking at the police department needs and the fire department needs?
So the police study would address the parking of the police, the fire.
Okay,
The parking of the fire, and a broader thing, that's a separate deal.
okay, so the further recommendations is a different study.
Yes.
Okay, and so just so I'm thinking about it, correctly. Well, first of all, how many parking spaces are we short at the police station?
I mean, it's in the vicinity of a dozen, 10, it's not 100, it's a 10, 12, depends what, you know.
It depends on the expansion of the building itself, Nathan.
Well, then you lose, you have to replace.
When you do the expansion, if we do an expansion and build on the existing one, depending on how many parking spaces get taken up.
And you're already.
there,
Right.
But.
Okay, so it's going to be a balance of the size of the building to the number of parking spaces.
There's currently, this is Mike Saylor, 319.
You have
Why don't
to
you
come
share?
up, Mike, so you can be heard. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Mike Saylor, 319 Unit 11 Stern Street. Currently, they squeeze 14 cars into the police station. The plans say that there are 12. And 14 is not enough based on the analysis of dual shifts and other things. How much more is debatable, but I would personally say that you need, another 5 to 10 just for the police for the medium term. I don't know about long term. That's why you would have a study and professionals that would know how to do that.
Yeah, thanks. The number of cars
Okay.
we're talking about these are both the police vehicles and the officers' personal vehicles.
Yeah.
Total of somewhere but around 14 right now are what go in there. Yeah.
And as I recall, in the TBA plans that we had last, we had planned training area that they don't have now where they wanted to do classes and things like that. So you could think about another few cars coming in there for training.
Nathan, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Basically, I think the answer to my question there is the study would tell us how many parking spaces we needed, and then they would look to see where they could fit those spaces, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then when we're talking about that further, this is my last question, I promise. I guess I can't promise that, but when we're looking at the further recommendations there, are you thinking it's just an expansion of where the current town hall parking is, that's just made bigger? Or is it somewhere else on Conant land?
Yes, and yes.
I don't know if they can.
Right, it's
Okay.
Not to be limited, right?
Right.
Right.
But what's been explored, my understanding is it's been the area primarily from the town hall parking lot going down toward.
Right. And it's been explored by lay people
Yeah.
with a great idea, not with any sense of study. So.
Okay, and that's not a part of this anyway, right? This
Right, and
isn't a
that's
part of what we're saying.
And that's what we're saying is this would be a great study too. And I don't know if you can combine all three, if you choose to do the third study, combine them with one organization.
That's exactly what, springs in my mind is. Because there's another element we haven't, you alluded to it, which is the COA-HS,
Right.
which has raised its hand and said, well, what about us, right? So, and Ryan has his own ideas about the constraints of this building. So to me, if you look at the needs on one side, so fire, police, aging and parking, which connects all of those. And then on the other side, you look at the constraints. So there are the zoning constraints, there's the footprints that exist, there's the wetlands, there's town-owned land and whether we can use some of it. You know, a bound picture begins to emerge, not the solution, but the boundaries, right? And then the opportunity though, which is really exciting to me, is to finally have the opportunity to to create a town campus and really draw the center together in a way that's never been done, which again, ideally from just a vision, you know, if you could manage it, you have better parking. I mean, we agree, this parking lot is ridiculous out here, right? Better use of space, more connected through pathways or whatever, and safer certainly, and allowing the constituents of the COA, which by the way is the largest growing segment in town, right? Some of us know that every day, to park, do their activities, go to Ferns, go to the library. You know, I mean, there's certain things where we've talked, we sort of design things so people can walk, but nobody walks, right? Because there's really not a good way to do it. So I personally would be very much in favor of, and I don't know what, you got two experts. Well, you don't yet have a police expert, but there'll be a police station expert and we have a fire station expert. But we need like a urban, that's not even urban, but a planner, a town planner, but not art, I mean, professional. And I'd be very interested in what that looks like as, and to your point, is that on top of little studies that go, or is it one big thing? I mean, I don't know anything.
Well, I think the master plan and the housing plan both recommended a study of the town center, visioning study with charrettes. Again, not, you know, to help people to think through some of these.
John Valentine is here.
Yeah, it's right up there. Yeah.
I'm there.
I'm there.
So so these, the idea would be we would put a warrant article on for town meeting this spring about funding. Well, our options are one study that looks at police and fire, but from the conversation we're having, we're talking about a larger, potentially a study that encompasses the whole area as David's describing it. And therefore we would be, I mean, we'd have to figure out, are we asking for one study that would be a larger amount than the 40,000 that's in your current recommendation? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we have kind of estimates for feasibility studies for police and for fire. But I mean, we haven't looked at the whole town center.
I mean, do you have any idea, Ryan, for example, what that would cost?
Well, I've been following a lot of these discussions, so I'm working with Julie to understand the area and better understand the needs. So in the procurement we're doing for our design services, also understanding that there's a ton of disciplines that are needed here.
Yeah.
So it's civil engineering, it's architect, and then it's combining them all with specialties. So ideally you would have, if you're going to do it all, a study that then they could sub out some of the other design qualities and then get whatever answer you want based on your scope of work. Or you could handpick each part that you want to do, but they're going to talk anyway. So the downside of a combined is they're going to add a little premium for subbing out the work. So you could probably double the costs, at least maybe triple that you've mentioned. So somewhere in the vicinity of 40, which you're identifying, to about 120 is my educated guess. I think with some leverage, 100 would get it done.
Considering it as a percent of the project cost, so well, I don't think you guys really priced it, but there's a lot of collective knowledge across from us here. So in your minds, very rough, if just segregating now again, parking and all that other stuff, just the two buildings, the annex and assuming expansion and revamp of the police, is this like 20 million? You
I'm
guys,
gonna go like this. I don't know, gang. We
guys have
haven't, we
any-
didn't know this question was coming.
We need to have some information. Brian Sauer's proposal is 9,000
Right.
square feet.
okay,
Best number right now is $1,000 per square foot.
that's 9 million
That's
bucks.
$9 million.
Okay, so
It's
10.
$9 million, but it shouldn't be 20. I mean, if it's 20.
20 for the two, maybe. I mean, you get for the two.
At least I asked my.
No.
Okay, well,
20 for the police.
well, 9 and.
Fire, we're talking
Yeah, fire, 10.
Just
10
fire alarm.
Okay, so, well, the reason I'm asking more, I mean, for two reasons, I guess. One is, you say, well, gee, 100,000 for a study. Wow, that's a lot of money for a study. But I'll just use 20 as a placeholder for everything. That's
20 million.
20 million, 9, 10 million for the fire and 5 million for the police and something that COA is another little building and everything, citing all that, on the order of 20, which certainly way less than what I understood a single standalone public safety building, including acquiring land, would be in the 30s, I would
Well, it
guess.
would be like 28 million.
Plus land, right? Okay. So 20 million, 1% of 20 million is still $200,000. So for 0.5% of the end construction, you can get a vision. I just want to calibrate the idea that, wow, a 6-figure study of a study, that seems like a ton of money, but it's prudent in my mind because we are talking double-digit millions, no matter what we do. So, less than 1% of the total cost to spend up front to get a good sense of all the constraints, to me, sounds like, a good deal. The other thing that I would point out is that in the 2028 timeframe, I think the school building projects debt load starts to go down. So if this thing, we would initiate a study, we would propose a study for town meeting this year that I presume runs roughly the year till the next town meeting, right? So that's till town meeting of 2024, at which time you were suggesting, I think, detailed drawings and bidding, right? And so that means you start construction in 25, 26.
Yeah.
So you begin to get close to that 2028 where you could ban a couple years and then your debt load starts to come down as this kicks in. So, I mean, it is a window, I think, to.
Furrowed brow.
Also, the costs are also higher, because of that new timeline, right? So, just a quick question is, would this larger town center study, would that be a study around parking and connectivity within the center of town? Or would that be saying, hey, maybe the fire department doesn't go there, and maybe the police department, doesn't stay there and the police doesn't stay there? Is this study going to change all the thoughts about the buildings? And if they're not, then why don't we move forward with the studies for these two buildings to get them going? And then the connectivity and parking and everything is all a different study. If it's not going to impact the two buildings.
Well,
Oh, but it will.
But it does.
Might as far as parking goes.
Yeah.
The police station parking. it
Right,
sounds to
'cause
me is the,
If you can't use some of those parking spots which are currently on the police land in order to expand into. Yeah, so I think the parking cannot be cut off. I don't think it's like an arm that can be just severed and,
I also
taken
think-
to the other doctor.
I also think the town really should start moving on the fire department issue, because that's the thing that I think has the most impact to the town in the future. If all of a sudden we can't get our volunteers or our call people to maintain the staff.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a huge impact to the town if we have to go full-time or some variation of full-time.
Mhm.
And they're very crowded over there. I mean, I personally think we can live a little bit with the police station for a while, but the fire department needs something soon.
I think we all would concur with that.
And that's more separatable with regard to parking and access, I
I
guess.
would think so too, because it's kind of
Yes.
farther away. The
Yeah.
parking issue is really town.
So, isn't it true that again, the timeline, even if you do one project, say you do the fire department only right now, still get funds authorized at this town meeting and get the construction plan authorized in 2024. So that's a year no matter what. So one could, I think, ask for more money for a bigger study, which is separatable, right? You're not going to delay because it's still a year by the time you get done and ask for funds. And you can tee up the fire station as the first one in a staged build, I presume, right?
Yeah,
And,
we didn't go into this in depth
Right.
in our meetings because it's not our purview, but
But you're not as constrained on the fire. You know, in other words, you can probably figure out the parking on site. The
Yeah.
police, it's a tough one. It's hemmed in pretty darn good.
And
Well, then I think we should move forward with the fire one and, you know, take a look at look at everything else we're talking about, but it just seems to me like, you know, it's not the purview, you know, as they've been saying, of this team. And so, you know, would we really be able to get the costs together for a study in time for this town meeting if we kept them all together?
the only thing I would say is we can't lose momentum on the police station
Yeah.
because the police station does not meet code right now for a police station. So there are a number of issues with the building that really need to be addressed. So my concern is if we just run down the road with fire, then police is just going to be put on the back burner again. And we just can't recommend that.
And I would just say, Nathan, that my concern about doing them, you know, in piecemeal, or even just doing a study of the fire department and then the police station, rather than spending the additional money to have an overall scope and plan that we've actually costed out, I think could end up with us spending additional money to do more studying, when if we do the whole, take a look at the whole project, then we don't run the risk of doing work here on the fire station and then the police station, and then we go, oh, whoops, if we had thought about what we might want to do with the space in between, we would have made a different choice on what we did on the police station or what we're doing with the fire station. And, you know, I would rather have the overall concept, have that done by a reputable firm, and we take the town through the process of, weighing in on that and understanding the options. And then we get a study back, next spring, and can move ahead from there.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about is, so I'm totally supportive of what was presented to us tonight. The only thing I worry about is if we kind of last minute make it a bigger study, we may not get the support of town for that kind of change to the Conant land into the town center, and we may end up with nothing. And so it's just adding risk. I think the town would vote for the studies we were just talking about. If all of a sudden we go to this town meeting with this larger, we're going to study the center of Carlisle and the parking and the pathways and the use of Conant land for that, I just worry that we may end up with nothing.
I think though, I'm sorry, if we end up, we're going to have to look at that space for parking for the police station anyway, right? The parking is going to have to be addressed. And I think our recommendation is to go back towards town hall, partially because there's no other place. And because it would then possibly trip a solution for other areas in that part of the center of town. So you kind of can't peel them apart in some ways, because we are going to have parking addressed on some level.
Okay, so that gets back to that $20,000 does include the going back into Conant land and not just the wetland and behind the cemetery?
I think the study would tell us what was right there.
Behind the burial ground.
Yeah.
So is it, or what would it take? I'm just thinking about town meeting, because Nathan, I think you're raising a really good question about, how will people feel about authorizing $100,000 for a study of something that, has been talked about and studied before, or at least parts of it. Is it possible to get I don't know the terminology, this is not my area of expertise, but some kind of a concept that's a visual concept of what we're talking about so that town meeting people and in advance of that, we would obviously try to get it socialized and get some of that information out so that people could see what the idea is. What's the reason for having money to that amount of money to do a larger study? What are we potentially considering in a visual way?
Before that question is answered, Barney, because he keeps putting his hand up, I can see that I'm the only person on the TV, and John Ballantyne would like to speak. He's been trying to
Okay.
talk for a while.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Let me
Yeah.
just, Ryan, do you have an answer to my question? Is that something or maybe someone else in the room knows that skill exists
Probably
out
a
there?
Yes, well, no, a charrette is where you bring people from the community
Yeah.
and everyone has an input. I think that will take on a life of its own and get us too far afield of where
Yeah.
we want to be. You could get a site planner to come in and do several schematics of showing these different things. But as someone, actually, Nathan, you raised, questions about, the septic or the well and those things. And as you factor those into this plan, you may have a better handle of where things can be laid out and such. A site planner can do that. And I think it's not, a big endeavor. I mean, I would think, I don't know. I'm kind of listening to what you're saying, Nathan, and I think, we're trying to balance, our needs as a town, and we need a new fire, or we need, something new to support the fire department, and we need something new to support the police department. And we've been charged with that for a while, and we've got to kind of move with this. And so I like that idea. I'd love to, sit in another year, just say, okay, well, we're going to come up with all these different concepts and everything. But we do have to the rubber's going to meet the road here about getting certain things done. And I'm not saying I have the answer to that but I think that we have to keep that in mind. And I'm glad you brought that up, Nathan, because I think it's important.
John, go ahead, Jerry. And then I'm going to call on you, John.
Yeah, we know we have a definite need. At the very least, we need to do something at the fire station, and we need to do something at the police station. It's tempting to put those together and look at the total needs of the town center. But I think it would be horrible if by doing that, we lost the ability to proceed on the fire station and the police station.
Yeah. Okay. John?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the statements that a lot of you have made, particularly my fellow master planning people, which is basically we've been talking about both a longer term facilities plan and a longer term financial plan. And clearly public safety is kind of priority one. But as David mentioned, it's a phased process, and presenting that to the town as this is what we're going to be doing over the next 5 or 10 years, I think is really important. As you know, we've often been in our silos doing one project at a time, and then we find out, oh, gee, we didn't think of that and whatever. So I think what this committee has done a terrific job of is coming up, looking at these needs and coming up with practical solutions within the financial constraints that are clearly facing us. And we can debate what those financial constraints are, but they're clearly in the 20 million range, not in the 30, 40 million range, and how to do that in a way that makes sense and you lay it out. And I think that's really important that you lay that out to town meeting and saying, here's what we've done. And I know Ryan's been working on this and looking at this in detail, and obviously the finance committee. So you say, here's the first phase, here's the second phase, and here's how it's going to affect taxes and everything else. And I think and meet our facility needs in all of them. And I think that's we're getting there. It's a long process, and I think there are times that people get a little frustrated about how long it takes. But I think we're finally there. We're getting there, and I really applaud everybody for finally, saying, okay, here's a good practical solution. Let's see if it's going to work.
Thank you. Well, we're not here tonight to try to, make a decision. I mean, we wanted to have a good back and forth conversation. We still have a little more time.
Well, I certainly support getting studies, the 2 studies that were recommended in here. I'm wondering if we shouldn't give a little more money and be crystal clear that those studies will address parking on all of them, just to make sure that parking and circulation.
I mean, we certainly can add that to the scope of work that we ask for in
Yeah, but-
studies that they might add to the cost. And
That's what I'm saying. I would support adding to the cost in order to be sure that that is in the scope.
The, but I also want to, I agree with that. I think that we can provide the planners, whoever is engaged, with constraints that are in, that, and constraints and lack of constraints. So I don't know that it's necessary to offer up Conant land. I don't know that that's the solution. That's an area of some parts of it are available, but we know we have town hall owned land right over here that's inefficiently used. And is it Conant?
Yes, town hall is sitting on Conant land.
Well, let me rephrase it then. The built part of Conant land, right? They're not going to unbuild it, right? Is anybody saying we're going to unbuild? No. So we've got already stuff that's inefficiently used. So that's not, making it more efficient. It costs money, but it's not changing it's not eating into, say, that's one of the factors that a planner should consider. So I just want to be clear, if we go with this idea of the two projects with parking as a consideration, what ground rules would they be provided? Like, what would they look at and what wouldn't they look at?
Do you all see yourselves as a committee providing the scope, requirements or criteria?
Somebody
know,
has to.
Yeah,
Well, the good news is that Ryan is a procurement guy. So we've already scheduled him to meet with us in 2 weeks to talk about writing up the scope. And then, is that what your question is? Oh, go ahead.
And a question also is that somewhere along the line, I guess the charter, if you will, of our committee is not to do that. Our charter was to make recommendations to you guys.
Right.
So it's time to either create a new committee or change our charter or find out if the members want to still stay and do the additional work. Because we're kind of going off now. It's
Yeah.
scope creep big time.
No, but I mean, we just need to,
Bill, it's free labor. Why wouldn't we scope creep it?
no, we just need to tell Ryan what's in
Exactly.
because
Our recommendations.
that was what I was seeing as our responsibility.
Final deliverable.
Yeah,
that's right.
deliverable.
Mike, you had your hand up a while back. Did you want to offer a comment at this point or?
I'll try not to go, Mike Saylor again, 319 Stern Street. I'll try not to go into details because I do. Barney, you asked about, are there visualizations? Yes, there are. The committee has seen them. In terms of the parking for the police station and visualization again of the police station parking, the two likely spots, which was mentioned in their report, are right behind the burial ground or going straight down the police station through the wetlands up towards town hall. So just focusing on the police station needs, you could pick either one of those. But then if you went and said, oh, but what would we do for town hall? You might pick one or the other of them.
Right.
So that's where going to that third recommendation might make some sense. And I won't go into any of the details, but there is uplands places in the wetland, or not in the wetland, the upland, which is not wet, still within the buffer zone. So a lot of conservation restrictions, a lot of engineering about what could you do or not. And so I'll just leave it at that, that's sort of why that third one comes in there.
Right. It's to be, right, just so we have a larger understanding of the possibilities in that area.
Yeah.
And right, we make the decision
get
about
there.
the police
Because
informed by that larger picture.
One
Yeah.
other comment relative to
Excellent.
Nathan's risk. The fire station is clearly a priority. One could have two warrant articles, because the fire station really does need the parking. fire station 20, for 20K study absolutely has to be done. Combine the police and all the other needs into the big study, which, it could delay a year if you needed to, if it doesn't work, and then you can, so make that one study, which includes parking, because police needs, if you don't solve the park for police, you don't solve the problem long-term. You have a short-term solution, so
Right.
you separate the fire station.
Yeah.
Add to that, Brian.
Yes, Ryan.
So was thinking along the same lines. This study isn't going to be done, nor likely is there a recommendation until next town meeting. So you're looking at either study not being decided on until 2024.
Well, wait, when you say that, you mean that we wouldn't have chosen somebody and have the study completed?
The study
Right.
would be complete. The decision on what to do about the study.
Yeah, wouldn't happen until, right.
So you have flexibility in ARPA funds if you wanted to secure funding for the fire station study and then go to town meeting with the idea that you'd combine the two if everyone supported it, but the backup of having just the fire department before you rethought it.
Okay.
Or you could do 2 warrant articles so that the choice is clear. I think that shows the public transparency and then buy-in for the eventual decision.
Mm-hmm.
But advocating for the staff, the fire department and the police department are both priorities. I do agree the fire department is larger priority. And using ARPA funds for that study to get space and others is, what it's for.
So if we were to request ARPA funds, then that doesn't go to town meeting.
It doesn't, but you could connect it in a presentation or a discussion. About
Yeah,
the warrant article.
where there was a warrant article for a study for the police station and the sort of larger concept of parking and town hall needs. Yeah. Okay.
And I just, just speaking about the timeline, I think that we need to do this with a lot of urgency because this is just a feasibility study, right? This is not, we're not going to have design docs at the end of this, right?
Right.
And so if we go to town meeting now and we get the money for we get these funds and we say, it's just for the police and the fire, or we say it's for the bigger project, we then need to go to town meeting, next spring and ask for the money to get the design docs.
Right.
And then we need to go to town meeting again to get the money for the, so we're talking 3 years away and we've done nothing to solve the fire and police.
Mhm.
So I think we just need to eliminate as much risk as we can in something happening to make this not work out.
Mhm.
Could all of the feasibility study, if we were looked at the whole thing, the $100,000, could that all be ARPA? So why don't we just do that?
Well, that's another discussion about our.
We're here, were you here when Scott?
We have to think about that. But the other, question, I was just talking to you, what would happen if, well, I don't know, you phrase it. I've kind of lost.
He's
track of it.
asking, could the feasibility study be done by the fall in time for a fall town meeting? My gut reaction was no, but if you think so,
I mean, if you just took the fire station?
well, I don't know which one, but just to move it along as,
Right.
My opinion is there wouldn't, yes, but the decision on what to do would take longer debate.
right, then you could get ready.
That you could,
You gotta socialize it.
So yeah, if you just completely agreed with the study and everyone was on the same
Yeah,
page, yeah, fall, but you need that time to discuss it and decide what you're gonna do.
well, and
We've
I-
also said that we didn't want to do projects like this that, were expenses in the fall meetings.
Right, that's what we've,
right.
right,
And
we
if,
try to keep it within the fiscal year.
and if we're saying that the fire department is the priority, I'm a little nervous because I had come into this thinking both were priorities. And I think if you start to indicate that to, the public, if that, and whatever it is, and we want to tell the truth about it, but it's, if they're equally as important, I think we need to portray that and say, these are, need to be done now, because I think if you give people a choice, they'll say, oh, well, what do I have to do? Oh, well, just the fire department. And then, you could lose your political will to do the police station. Then we could really be in a worse situation.
Well, I think it's hard to make a distinction about which is higher priority, police or fire. The police station has issues. It doesn't meet the standards for a police station for a town our size. There is some potential liability the town has for are not providing an adequate facility
Right.
to deal with the needs of the police department.
Not
There
agree.
is the issue of the safety of the police staff as they bring people in and out of the station. The way it's happening right now is marginal at best.
And I remember when we were working on the plans, it was the highest priority, didn't even talk about the fire station. So I'm sitting here wondering, gee, when did it lose so much priority? Yeah,
I should restate from the staff perspective, the police department is much more complex because of the lack of space and its reliance on the land around it. So they are of equal priority to staff. It's just the fire department is more solvable because it doesn't rely on more space.
I like what you said, Travis, that we don't want to forget how important they both are.
yeah.
And leading with one may diminish the importance of the other.
Right, and so, I mean, that's a political issue that Nathan's also flagged. And we've been there many times where if you overreach, you sometimes get none. I mean, I don't know if Jerry, you were in FinCom back in the day when we thought that turf fields would be great. And we ended up with no fields because people thought we overreached, right?
Wrote at the high school 5 years ago.
Yeah, right. So I think, but I want to go back to what I said. 0.5% insurance policy to make sure that you're doing the right thing is cheap money. Now, it is political in a lot of ways, one of which is if you cross that magic 6-figure, people wake up. And another one is that some people, I've heard this before, say, well, gee, it's a slippery slope. Once you authorize that, you're kind of already predetermining the outcome that you're going to go do the project. So people who may just generally not support big ticket items might not want to even start down that road. I don't know politically if we just unilaterally, well, obviously the ARPA committee would have to agree, but if we simply bypass that whole process and spent that money on ARPA, just saying, we're going to do this because we think it's important, and then we want to present you with a full set of facts a year from now. I don't know if people would say, well, you're really backdooring it, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. But I remain strongly in favor, however we parse it, through articles, whatever, of spending that small money up front to get the complete picture. We're so close and we know the constraints. And again, COAHS has not come up too much in tonight's conversation, but I know John's thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. You know, if we're going to do something, this is the chance, because we're not going to build another building for a long time after this set of buildings. And that's the truth. And, you know, community center, I mean, you could even say that giving this sort of space that Joan articulated a few meetings ago is a sort of community center. It's not the big, gym with pool and all that, but it's a place where people can gather, which is a thing that's sorely lacking also. So now it, again, doesn't mean we have to spend that money now. You can parcel those out, but the 0.5% roadmap, and you already have two, half of it, right? I mean, you have two pieces that are, to what Ryan said, are subcontractable. Stu Roberts would certainly get his piece that he's good at and he knows. And you'd have to find the Stu Roberts of police. So I recognize the political issue, and I certainly don't want to come up empty-handed out of town meeting because we screwed it up. But boy, we can easily screw it up by balkanizing the thing and not recognizing the whole.
I guess I still worry though, David, that I completely understand where you're coming from. But if we're doing a study of town center as it is in the master plan of the use of town center, that's a massive project. And that's where we started on this of, oh, should we do that? It just seems to me like a major increase into what this is looking at. And I don't see how it happens quite that fast, because we really need to involve a lot of input from town citizens.
I agree with that, but looking at it doesn't necessarily mean we're doing it. But you'll never do it if you don't look at it. You have, to me, we're
But you
kind
don't
of,
want to do the plan unless you're getting the input from people, right? We don't want to just say, oh,
We'll have-
go and do this plan.
well, I think that we'll have to have a component of public shredding in it. Absolutely. But I don't want to be the seven blind men and the elephant where, we each have a piece of it and we don't have the whole picture. Well,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
I guess I just think this is, has been such a priority for so long. Is there a way we could just, ask the people doing the study for these two buildings, give us, give us a solution if there is a lot more parking, give us a solution if there isn't a lot more parking. I mean, there's got to be a way we can do it without doing the complete study of town center. It also seems to me like that complete center would be a lot more than $120,000.
I think you could do a study that is just the parking for the police station and, it just includes the police station saying, how can we solve this issue? And really think about that as part of that study without getting into a massive study. I worry about the project creep and I also worry that we could study this and it's always great. We could, because there's always other possibilities, but we are at a point, I think, where we need to start to, it's like a funnel and we started with, we're going to look at other lands and look at other things. And we've kind of funneled down and we've said, okay, we're going to come up with a better idea for the fire station rather than building a whole new one. We're going to add to this. We're kind of zeroing in. And I think we're risking going out. And I know there's an argument to be made that you should go out now because you only get one chance at this and we want to do it right. But we have certain things that we need to get done too. So I don't know. I'm falling a little bit more on the camp of let's get this.
But the impact on, well, I guess the crux of it is, can you do a credible study? And it's going to take a year to do a study and come back to town meeting, right? We all agree. Whatever we commission, whatever we pitch or ARPA fund for this town meeting, the real spend is presented in spring of 24.
I would think a feasibility study by a firm could be done in.
I would think so.
Within 3 months.
Well, you said 3 months, but then you push
But
back
then-
at 12 months. I mean, I'm saying in 12, it's a concerted effort to get this thing done again as a package. And it doesn't mean you can always decide at the end of that study, we're going to go fire and then we're going to go police and then down the road, we're going to do something. I mean, you can decide to stage it once you have the facts, but to go without the facts, we're going to spend $20 million. Like, shouldn't we have a plan?
Well, I don't know if this is my place to talk, but I'm going to. So this is a feasibility study. And I love your analogy about the funnel, right? We're getting closer. You start with a master planning committee. And you talk about what's the master plan. They've said we need a center of town. Then you got another committee that says we need more parking for our COA people. You have us come in and say, well, we're going to need more parking for the police station. We're probably going to try to go up behind the town hall. It seems to me like this funnel is telling you something really clearly. Is that we need to start working our way towards our goals. And we've just established that this is part of your goal. This, all of us.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me silly that we would take this clear knowledge and go, let's wait.
In terms of the timeline, if there is a sense of urgency, would it not be possible to do, fund the design study, feasibility study now? Suppose that says, yes, it's feasible. Could one not in a fall town meeting authorize the expenditure for the design documents, not the project, because that's a lot less than $10 million, whatever it is. And then next spring, actually authorize the project. At least
I think that's reasonable.
24, I think it's.
They try not to do.
But we've tried as a policy, that, not to bring a large financial decision to a fall town meeting. That ideally it happened in the spring along with the other financial decisions, but, it's not that we have done that upon occasion. We have broken that. John, I saw you had your hand up a while back, and Nathan, if you have a comment, we can do that afterwards. And then I do think we need to move on. So, because we have a big discussion about the budget coming up. So John, yeah, please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
So John Lee, 65 Lowell Street, longtime resident. I think while we're discussing the elephant and running our fingers around the funnel, it's very important as we get to having serious professional input that we recognize that there are some major wetlands issues and the role of the historic history of the town that need to get serious consideration because they're both major players in any decision that we make, and they shouldn't be glossed over lightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, John. Okay, and Nathan, yeah, you had a comment or something else?
Yeah. So I think, I guess just kind of in line with what was just talked about as far as the timing, if we're talking about these two studies that were presented tonight and the solution for the parking that was presented tonight, we could always bring that to town meeting this spring and potentially use ARPA funds for the design and be ready for town meeting next spring for the larger, this is how much it's going to cost for construction.
That's good.
Well, let's,
Of course, we're not the ones that, we're ultimately the ones that decide about ARPA, but we're not the ones that
Yes.
process it and everything. And so,
Right.
it's not, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but
okay, we've gotten a lot of, I think, really good discussion and information out here, and we'll have to make a decision about this in the not too distant future. We're having the joint meeting with the FinCom at the end of this month. We close the warrant at the end of the month, and we can put a placeholder on for, these items. And then in March, we'll have to decide how we want to handle this going forward. So that's good. We're on our way. And
Thank you,
we
guys.
Thank you very much, yeah, for your work and for your presentation tonight. Thank you.
Don't forget to end your meeting.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, you have to close your meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We adjourn.
Closing the Municipal Facilities Task Force meeting at 8:39.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I would suggest the select board stand up and stretch
Thank you. That's
because we got a lot of thinking we got to do for this next agenda item.
Wow.
Yeah.
Soy sauce or dinner.
Yeah.
20 miles.
Arnie.
Yes.
I may be away. Don't know, but I may be away. How deep into March? No, in the 22nd or middle of the 1st of March. Are we gonna be that far into March? Are we gonna be talking about this or is that?
Well, our meetings are the 14th and the 28th in March.
In March 28th? Or
Yeah,
February?
no,
March?
also March.
Oh, March.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will be away on the 28th,
okay,
but I may be able to remote in. I don't know
yeah,
my ability then,
okay.
but I'm just
Well,
want
let's
you to
keep
know,
that in
and I
mind,
just,
yeah, as we're discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're figuring out the agenda and, are you still thinking that there may be, police?
no, we'll be done by
candidates for
then.
Mid-March for that March 14th?
Oh, yeah,
meeting?
no, it'll be, before. So, yeah, March 14th.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
we will have that.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Okay.
somebody remind me the date of the town meeting?
May
May
8th, is that it?
May
That's
9th.
May
9.
9th,
Yeah.
okay. No, it's May 8th.
Is it 8?
Yep, Monday, right? It's Monday night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carlisle Town Meeting, yeah.
Yep, March 20th, I think is the
The caucus?
caucus.
Yeah, put that in my calendar.
Okay.
Yeah, Monday night,
Oh,
March. Yeah, March. Okay,
How about that?
that's okay, February, March.
We will have a police chief.
great,
I have it on this. one.
great. Okay, so let's see, David is sure coming back shortly. Let's move on to the budget discussion, which we have planned for 45 minutes. And so,
Place cleared out.
yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
cares about the budget.
Yeah.
We argued about.
We're gonna spend all the money.
I know.
And it's that, yeah,
It's that 100,000 that everybody
Yeah.
gets all bent out of shape.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been out of shape. Be careful. Okay, so Ryan, I'm gonna ask you to give us, maybe a summary or of the documents that you've included in the packet. I think, did you want to start with the item on, page 18 of the packet, which is the revenue notes, the expenses, deficit analysis? That one?
Levy analysis,
Uh,
notes.
yes.
Okay,
And I will give you the title of the document that I'm looking at. But generally speaking, the point of the documents is to give background for what is really needed, which is a discussion about the level of services and the additional requests that have come before the select board. The finance committee is looking for that guidance. They're also providing their own, and how it's going to be funded. So the guidance that was given by the select board and the finance committee to me was to provide some analysis of what level services would look like while keeping taxes relatively equal to last year's increase, which is somewhere in the vicinity of a 3% tax increase. Given the school's increase this year,
regional school.
specifically the regional school, in the 3% from Carlisle Public Schools, and mandatory spending increases, specifically the retirement assessment that we have to pay. Almost all of the new revenue is gone just in a level services budget without doing any type of employee compensation. So if you go to the second page in the budget document, it's called levy analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
More past
page
that.
19 in the packet.
So the first column is what was approved last year. The second column is what would be a guidance budget. So what would meet that guidance of level services while keeping the taxes the same? And the third column is all the additional requests that were made, and there's only 4 of note: the sustainability coordinator position, the employee compensation plan, the COHS drivers, and then the stipend from the town clerk, which could be rolled into employee compensation. So what this levy analysis is showing you, if we get right to the bottom line, is down in all the way down the bottom, you see the average tax bill. So in a level services budget, you would have approximately the same tax increase that you had last year, even a little bit higher at 518 per average house in Carlisle being $1.1 million. If you were to include everything that was requested without doing anything, without cutting anything or adding any revenue, then the annual increase in taxes would be $698. So this is adding approximately $350,000 to that budget to fund those additional requests. That's the backdrop of the first sheet, which is called, starts with revenue notes.
Yeah, Ryan, is it possible to put this up on the screen? Thank you.
I meant to do that. I was just too excited.
Yeah.
No, Nathan can follow it at home, Deborah, and,
Okay,
So
there we go.
this deficit that I've been using try to create shared language here. So deficit is that 350,000 above the guidance. So in order to get to what we're calling your guidance, we need to do something about the 350,000 in additional requests.
Right,
that
and you
could
say
be-
350, but it's this 339 figure on here.
I'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay, all right.
The 350,000 includes all those extras that I was talking about. So you could not do any of the extras, which would
Mhm.
get you down to guidance. You could cut other parts of the budget, which would get you down to guidance. You could increase revenue or use one-time funds. Those are kind of the 4 big buckets. Then I was asked, okay, the employee compensation, what would that actually cost? So once we did that analysis, the deficit was more focused at the 339,000. So those 2 numbers are equivalent, right? And the
Okay.
tax impact would be negligible given the difference between the 2. So if you walking with me, that deficit is 339,000. So what this document here is showing is an analysis of expenses that could be cut. This is low hanging fruit or things that would have negligible impact on services that I walked through with the finance committee, totaling about 126,000 in cuts. We could probably find a little bit more in this. This is some fat in the budget. We could trim the budget in order to fund these new these new requests or these requests above guidance. The second section, the deficit analysis, is the specifics of that additional 339,000 so that you can see them line itemed out, right? So you have your health insurance recommendation, a COLA at a 3%, the wage adjustment based off the HRS study and moving people on to a new scale. A estimate at the sustainability cost, depending on what level of sustainability coordinator and what hours you wanted to fund it, the town clerk stipend, and then the driver request from the COHS.
And the health insurance is a 1% increase?
That would be a 1%, which, to be fair, the finance committee had this critique and I agree with it. You're really talking about where you want health insurance to go. So although it's 1% this year, it's a larger discussion about where you want to end up. So
Mhm.
it has a much bigger impact than just 16,000. For sure.
It's
16.
Wasn't included in the original budget, and that's why it's considered. That's correct.
Correct. So
It's a flat. All salaries.
all salaries are flat except for obligatory costs, which include
Well, teachers are contractuals are in the base budget.
school is, yeah, I'm considering school as a done deal.
Police.
The police and any mandatory contracts we have and any obligations are considered in there, any step increases. But there's no,
It's all right. We were.
there's no general COLA.
What about half the town employees
But
covered already?
some of the employees get steps, so that would be in there already, right?
Yes,
So steps are there, but no the only thing that's not there is the, and, where's the structural? That's a wage analysis, that's, that, so if you change the step structure, that's included in this.
it is.
Okay, good.
Then we're gonna move, oh, so that ends the operating budget discussion. So the decision points for you are what new additional costs do we want to incur above your guidance? So that's employee compensation generally, so health insurance, COLA, and any adjustments to the wage scale. And then do you want to add the sustainability position? And then do you want to add van drivers and or a stipend for the town clerk, which I think is rolled up in employee compensation, although it's there as an additional request, we kind of talk about them the same, and it's small dollars. So that's what is driving this levy discussion. So if you want to keep taxes the same, that's where you have to constrict yourself. Now, there's two other pieces you should consider. One is revenue here is generally conservative. So you could relax your revenue conservation and cut into this deficit with increases in what you're expecting for local receipts, which is almost a guarantee, and then what is kind of come in for state aid. So if state aid came in 50,000 more than we're projecting, then that would eat into that deficit.
So the, let's see, so what you've got here is the projected state aid for FY '24. And the column out to the right would show if we were going to make changes in our estimated revenue, that's where that would show up.
So that local receipts line, if you wanted to estimate it, say $100,000 higher, which our budget could tolerate, but it would create some risk. And that would cut into your amount that you have to tax. which would
Right, but that
reduce
would, so that you would, so those are the questions for us to consider on the revenue side.
But you made
Yeah.
an estimate on that.
I don't see any
Revenue.
changes in them.
Well, the state aid has a change. just for
Have
that.
you, yeah, and the 1.4 million, you've already included that
23,
more aggressive assumption.
yeah, but that's.
No, that is not an aggressive assumption.
So what you haven't changed here is there's these assumptions are the conservative ones that are under FY '24.
Yes, prudently conservative.
Okay.
Right, and you have not changed them in the TAFD with comp and request.
No.
Okay,
Can I, on that topic, I did, after I spoke to you, I did look at your TA report where you had a link to the budget that's on the website.
yes.
And on that budget, local receipts, you have last year's 1.191 and a recommendation of a 1%, which is a lot less than what you have here. So you've already made some assumptions, correct?
That's an old budget on there.
That's
the
what he
very
linked.
first
I-
draft. I know.
I'm just saying what he linked.
No, because this is also 1.9.
That's last year's, but
So
Last year was
1.92
1.82.
is FY
Oh.
'24.
Oh, all right, so.
No,
So
local receipts.
if you remember in the budget discussion, we also moved all of the building department revenue. and transfer station revenue. This does not
Yes.
decouple that.
Okay,
That's confusing, but it's necessary for,
okay, so you're saying this is a very modest, 1%.
yes.
And similarly, state aid, then I guess the same, right? 1.864, you're recommending 1.920, that's what you did. Right? Okay, got it, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the sustainability position?
You're the boss.
No, I'm not. Is there any consideration in the scope of this job to including some grant writing?
Well, you want to drop down to that,
Because, well, that affects the expense.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
and- Okay,
let's drop down to the description, which starts on page 25 in your packet. It's the
Ah.
concept paper. It's below the last of the financial papers, above the warrant.
This document was an ask. Of
Yeah,
your-
I
of your
requested.
chair To
Yeah.
say, if we had our way, Julie and I, what would we recommend for a sustainability position, assuming that you wanted to fund it at a higher level? Higher level meaning someone that works more than part-time.
Yeah, so just, refresh our memories, we had a grant to fund a part-time person this year that ends the end of June. That was the one we were sharing with Westford. We don't anticipate doing that again. And so, and this is also something that's been, very strongly requested by the Environmental Sustainability Committee. But they didn't provide us any kind of a job description. I asked Ryan and
I
Julie.
see it now.
Yeah, to give us some idea about what these duties might be, and it does include in it down near the second to
does.
last bullet, grant opportunities.
Sorry, I did read that and it didn't penetrate.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. And again, this is,
Yeah.
what's in here is at 30 hours a week with a salary range 56 to 64. And again, this is just to give us something specific to discuss. But it's not set in stone.
So why 30 hours and why this salary range? We believe we need what we would call a doer, so an educated doer. Someone to do the work of sustainability to prove the concept. So this person would serve under the town planner, at the direction of the town planner, focusing on specific activities that would move Carlisle forward on its sustainability path, while supporting myself and the ESC. So myself being to help make the capital plan and the town hall more sustainable, and the ESC and their request or their quest to do all of it, plus work on some of the resident side of the house with reducing carbon and other impacts in the town. The 30
And
hour,
I'm sorry, the grant writing part of it would be beyond just sustainability. That would be grants across the town.
so I take more of a holistic approach to grants. It should be a combination of myself, the town planner, and the sustainability coordinator identifying grants. The only problem that I have with including grants, the grants are great, like we want grants, is we don't really know where we're going or what we're doing, which needs to be the honest truth about where sustainability is. What does the town want to do? We have to decide that before we go get grants. Otherwise, it's cart before the horse.
I agree with that, but I still want to get, once we decide, I certainly would like to find the grants. So that's because it's cart and horse, but on the other hand, if you don't have the cart, if you don't have the money for some of these ideas, you can't do them anyway. So,
Green
you know.
Communities is a good example. It's a good program. It requires constant updating and staff, and that's what's lapsed. So there wasn't anyone focused on Green
Yeah.
Communities, so we're trying to refocus on it.
Yeah.
But it does take us away from other opportunities, and we need to analyze whether or not the money that's coming in from Green Communities is helpful. Otherwise, it's just
Okay.
staff work to look good getting grants.
yeah.
And one other question about the job description before you move on, Ryan. At 30 hours a week, we're already paying benefits, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't it, I mean, given the shock of the previous pages that you showed us, isn't it just a marginally increase to just go ahead and hire somebody full-time, which would probably attract more people?
You mean 5 hours more a week?
Because you're already paying benefits.
Yes, there's some thought in here that, 4-day work week,
Could
some
be
focus
attractive.
would overcome that 5 hours worth of monetary gain. So we save some efficiency there, but what we're really asking is, do you want to fund this position? Is it worth cutting into other parts of the budget and the tax impact? And how much? You could say 20 hours, you could say 40, and we'll tell you what you're going to get out of that.
Barney, I had a question for you. You said that we weren't going to move forward. We have a shared agreement right now with Westford, is that right?
Right.
But we're not gonna do that again. Why did it not work, or what's the rationale?
Yeah, what's behind that decision?
Pardon?
Yeah, what's behind that?
Oh, well, I mean, Ryan would know more than I do on this, but it's,
We could
it
do.
was a grant opportunity in Westford. I think it was a mutual decision that it didn't work out as well as we hoped, but go ahead, Ryan. Do you have more you want to say on it?
So it's not decided, it's just that the grant funding is gone, so you have to make a decision to continue the position in some, so if you say can try to work with Westford to continue the position as is, that's still gonna have a cost impact that's close to what this is, if we want half of a position. If you want a full-time position, then I don't think that Westford would be a good partner. And we are a very different community than Westford with different sustainability goals. Our sustainability committees have different visions, and the select board is still deciding on its sustainability vision. So I don't think it would be a good monetary decision to split a person with Westford unless you had some really specific goals, and I don't think we're there.
But we have specific goals, don't we, for this? No,
They're not the same as Westford's, is what he's saying.
So what I'm saying is you don't. This is a vision that we tried to, could be what it is, but you have to decide on what it is.
We have we haven't, other than the discussion we had with the ESC last fall, and then their decision to focus on the route to sustainability day for April 22nd, and then the stretch code. Their work plan hasn't been translated into, what would you say, an action plan, a set of priorities for this next fiscal year. There's just a whole bunch of very ambitious proposals there. So that would need to be, I mean, I think in some ways our town planner, and if we funded this position, would be really honing in and bringing to the select board, okay, here's some recommendations about how to actually implement what's in that work plan.
Right.
And
Or
because
just
we
implement.
need to drive that as a select board, as opposed to we haven't really given any specific guidance to the
Right.
Environmental Sustainability Committee beyond that initial conversation about their work plan.
Well, or to, maybe go at it from another angle. The McLean administration wants to do the stuff. And no, seriously, and doesn't want the nighttime government doing, they want the nighttime government guiding,
True.
right? So they need doers, as he said. And doers are, can be not necessarily managers, they're just doers, right? And we already have a town planner, so the resource would be a staff position that would be under the guidance of the town government. The question, I mean, it's two questions maybe come to mind. One is the one he's identified, which is, as a starter, do you want to use, is it an appropriate use of ARPA, which is justifiable, but in other ways, sort of a budget gimmick to get out of this $200,000 hole, right? It's one of the levers, as he said. The other question for us, this is probably to me the more important question, is we clearly can't do everything. So even tonight, we talked about maybe a 6-figure study, but at least a $40,000 study for these buildings. Kate certainly is interested in acquiring land and doing some things for affordable housing. And, we're sort of at this point, maybe paying lip service, but there is a real interest in the town to be sustainable. But we can't do it all. And so we really have to think about our own prioritization, which I think is what, FinCom and Ryan have been asking.
But I don't know. I think I would challenge you on that one because we have some choices that about what we want to put in our budget in terms of the estimates about income, revenue, and our spending, and looking at the different sources of money that are available to the town. I think we can do it all. The question is, as a sort of policy or vision, do we want to try to do, really make a serious push around sustainability at the same time that we're going to move ahead on figuring out the police and fire, and manage our town budget so that it's reasonable and people can continue to afford to live here.
Well, yeah,
I
I
think
understand.
I would-
the challenge.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't think to say we can't do it. I think to say we can't do it all, I don't agree with that.
Well, I'm not, let me
I think
rephrase.
it's,
Go ahead.
I mean, I think it's clear we can't do anything we want to do, right? I mean, we can't do it all. But so we have to pick those that we can do. And, if we look back at what we saw here before, if I was hearing Ryan right, our annual tax increase on the average size home just for current level service is estimated at $518, right? So that's our starting point. And I think we just need to be really careful. I'm not being a naysayer on sustainability or anything like that. I was the one asking if we, why not 35 hours? But that's our starting point. And we just have to be careful if we're moving other levers in order to make these numbers change, or if we're bringing in cash from somewhere else, we have to make sure that we understand what happens when that's not available. We're committing the future to these things of what we're doing. So I agree with David. I think we have to be really, really careful here.
I agree. And it's some of these things we keep using ARPA, and I feel like we're gonna have overcommitted ARPA to everything.
Like the producers.
Yeah. Well, with my ARPA hat on, I would not be in favor of using it for operation.
Yeah, I think that'd be crazy, right? It'd be crazy to
I
do that
agree
because
with
what do
that.
we do when it's not there?
That's exactly why I'm not in favor of using it for anything operational.
So it does depend on, I'm sorry to keep pushing you on this, but it does depend on your goals. So if the goal is to make the town more sustainable, is that a 2-year push? Is that a 5-year push? Is it a 20-year push? If it's a 20-year push, then it is absolutely crazy to use one-time funds. If you wanted to look at it as an extension of the grant to see what you would accomplish, then it is. You just have to be disciplined and not say like, this is just going to creep into the operating budget in 3 years.
I think it's a forever push. Sustainability is not going to suddenly not be a thing in 2 years.
You don't necessarily need to dedicate a staff member to sustainability for 20 years. It could be something that you fix your policy or approach and you build some plans, and then that just falls under the purview of the existing staff.
Somehow I don't think that
Really?
works.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think, just to kind of get us back a little bit, the sustainability role is only one of many we need to consider, right?
Yeah.
And not just in a role, but one of many things that we need to consider in this new budget.
Right.
And Ryan, if we're looking at what you were saying, our increase was here, for all of the things that had been discussed, does that include any of the articles that may be put in front of the town, or any other additional costs that may be outside of just the regular operating budget?
I'm intentionally separating the two because the constraints that you have on the operating side are less on the one-time cost side, the capital side. That's more of a prioritization. So whether or not you fund a roof doesn't really impact your long-term operating costs, except if you're talking about generation of free cash, which comes into your conservatism of revenue. But they're kind of.
But we have to pay for those capital expenses, right? We have to factor those expenses in when we're thinking about how much operating expense we can have. because it all adds to
Right.
our tax, right?
Yeah, it's why someone like
I'm
me,
sorry, I just realized I don't have my video on. I'm sorry.
it's why someone like me is, like, when you're talking about ARPA or free cash, it doesn't matter to me. You would just spend, the only thing that matters is the flexibility, but how much flexibility? So you should spend,
So Ryan, in the operating budget, is there a placeholder for capital, like the normal 250K or something? Is that part of that budget?
no,
So there's zero capital spend in this budget you're presenting.
large cap, there's zero.
And in the past, we've had a little bit in the operating side, right? Like the 250.
I'm not sure that,
Let me say it a different way. So the capital requests that are routinely approved that are smaller items, they're not roofs and things, are usually tucked inside a bucket, like a truck, like a police car or something is usually in a, maybe it's not a good example, but in prior budgets, there's been a capital line in the operating budget, right? That's not in this baseline budget.
it's not, no.
So we're already, in addition to the 500, are we in even 250 above where we would be apples to apples with last year?
I didn't see a line in last year's budget.
Okay, I don't recall.
There are some places where there's additional funds, like
Yeah.
maintenance costs, for example, or
Yeah.
IT that have some cost built into it, but those are being eaten away by contracts and other commitments that you've made.
Yeah, there was no capital line. No.
Last year,
It
there
was
was,
all, it was all in form of warrants.
It was all warrants.
It was all warrants.
Okay, fair enough.
And if you look at page 23 in your packet, that's the requested warrant articles. With, and some of them have a price tag attached.
Yeah, no, I that part I know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, I think we're gonna,
Nathan was asking about that,
Oh.
so.
I think I pulled this off thing, but I would like us to kind of talk about the deficit analysis. Certainly the sustainability is one of the big items. I don't consider I think we should try to make some decisions about that or give some guidance about those items.
All the ones under deficit analysis? you mean?
Yes, yeah. I just go launch in. Personally, I'm very much in favor of increasing the health insurance benefits over the next 10 years, or how many every years. I think a COLA at 3% for this year is a perfectly reasonable one. We've been giving 2 for the past several years. There's been a lot of, we have, a lot of inflation on the news. I think 3% COLA with the wage analysis would go a long way towards morale and the good stewardship of our staff, so to speak. So I'm totally in favor of that. I'm going to skip over sustainability because I think we have a lot of discussion that we need to have around that one. And I'm also in favor of the other 2. But so the only one I'm kind of squishy on personally is the sustainability one.
Well, I'm very supportive of the wage analysis proposals. I think, and maybe we all are, in which case we could, agree around that. But as we are seeing, we have some staff that have made decisions to move on. And I think that's partly because of our being out of sync with the market. And then I also think we have some inherent, what's the right word? Maybe inequity in where some of the middle range staff are in terms of their pay. And this would address that. And I think that's going to be very important for the future of the town hall staff in terms of their ability and their willingness to, their desire to stay.
So if we took this 339, if we separated out the 65, whether it's ARPA funds or just doesn't make the cut list, we're talking about 148,000. And let me ask you a question. So typically in a year, in any given year, we use some free cash. And you could make an argument, or let me propose an argument without necessarily advocating for it, that because this year on the operational side, we have this huge 600 and something thousand dollar bump as a result of an assessment with the, from the region, that it's okay to use a little free cash because it's like a ramp. You know, it's not a, we're very, you know, certainly I'm one of the ones, and others, Nathan, I hear it, and definitely FinCom is not an advocate of, you know, getting hooked on free cash. But if you have like these extraordinary, even if they're operational, if they're extraordinary and sort of one time, you can use some free cash. So 150,000, let's call it, of free cash, where we're sitting, you know, well above. We didn't really get to that part, but it's in his analysis that we're, I don't know, 16% instead of 12%, which is, you know, we're like the highest in the Commonwealth or something, right?
You're in the
Top something.
side of it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I can see funding those things and using free cash to do that, I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're talking, as you said, it's 148.2. If you take that 65 out and the 126 of the expenses that Ryan says you can cook, you got 148.2.
Right. And you use free cash and
That's-
then you're set operationally,
That's
you've
free
done, some-
cash, and you're set, yeah.
you've addressed those important things
Yeah.
about staff and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, you survived a year where there was a huge increase in the
Yeah.
regional school.
Right.
Yeah. I will
It just
say-
seems like we're putting an awful lot of potentially operational things into that free cash.
What do you mean, Nathan? Which,
Well, I mean, so, you know, I think we kind of need to get, you know, I think maybe Ryan wasn't provided the opportunity to finish, you know, the requested warrant articles part, right? You know, the cost of that, it looks to me like we're not able to pay for all of that.
So if I could,
Okay, yeah,
I think it's helpful, especially for the finance committee. So if you went to
yeah.
very last page of this section called reserve calculations with current budget.
Reserve,
So this is,
I got it. Okay. Yeah, you got it there.
where is that?
It's just
page
past-
24.
Yeah,
Okay,
a couple
thanks.
more down.
so these are our current reserve levels, stabilizations at 1.2 million and free cash is at 4.2 million for a total of 5.4 million in reserve. So the 12% comes from a buffering of what is normally considered to be prudent. So 10% of your operating budget is considered to be a standard for a reserve level, a target that you want to hit. 12% is leaning towards the more conservative nature of budgeting here, which is a good thing. So if you took the reserves and you minus, if you subtracted the 12% and you spelled additional, right? So I apologize for
Yeah.
that line. Then you're what I'm calling capacity. So creating shared language here, this is funds available above 12% would be 1.4 million.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily at all advocating for spending all of that,
Right.
but that is above 12%. So if you took everything in the capital plan, which again, I'm not necessarily recommending, and the warrant articles minus any conversation about when you were having tonight, that's not included in this, would have a free cash impact of around 1.2-ish million, and you would still have 260,000 available to put it back into your reserves, would put your reserve level around 13%.
So go back for a second, and you said the expenses, you've got the warrant articles and the capital plan, but you're saying this doesn't include the items listed outside the guidance in the operating budget,
Right.
correct?
Correct. So if you took
Okay,
what David just said and put 150,000, that would eat into that 263,000, and you would still have 100,000 over your target reserve.
Well, I think, yeah, let's not take, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I think, and we really do, because of time, I think we need to switch to the capital and warrants. Because as Nathan points out, those are being proposed to be financed through free cash. So I'm just saying as a placeholder, we should come back to it. But if, as Ryan points out, if we're sitting at 1.4 million above a very conservative 12%,
Yes.
okay, and we don't have to spend it all in 1 year, and we shouldn't spend it all in 1 year, but 10% of that to take care of an operational issue in a year where we had a big jump on the region, which hopefully won't be repeated for a while, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And then we can say, okay, on the operational budget side, I'm just hypothesizing. Let me take 150,000 of that 1.4 million, set it aside for operations.
Yeah.
Now let's go look at the
Right.
250,000 of warrant articles ex CPA and the million something of the other list
Yeah.
and decide how much of that we want to do. That's my
I
opinion.
would agree. I would agree with that, David, completely. As long as we can look at what we think that, our percentage, our number is going to be, and we can say, yes, here's a blip. It's a temporary blip. I would totally agree. That's a good use of this, because that way we're not doing a higher tax rate for something that's not going to be needed over time.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So briefly
let-
with the capital plan, just to jump into that 800, that's a lot of money, 800,000.
Yeah. So you're on page 20 in
It's on
the
this
packet,
color-
right?
the color.
Yeah, the color coded graph.
Green down the middle is current year.
Yep.
And FY 24 is the far. So this is just honing in on 24, not the remainder of the capital plan. The reason for that is I think the school committee, the finance committee, myself, the MFC have identified that we need a better longer term plan, but for FY 24, we're pretty close. We're almost there. So what Scott was talking about with ARPA tonight, and this is conversations that you should know, is targeting some of these items in FY 24 to lower that $800,000 cost, take the pressure off free cash by using some ARPA funds.
Yeah.
One of them that's been discussed is that elevator, that 150,000 for the schools. If you move down me on the list,
I
conversation.
thought we already did the elevator.
That's another.
Did a different elevator.
Different elevator. All right.
The items here identified for the DPW, I've prioritized based off conversation with Gary. So
That's
some
the
of those,
second page.
yep,
Yeah.
some of those
Yeah.
can go away.
What can you be more
Yeah, the-
descriptive?
Oh, 22.
Bucket lift truck,
Bucket list.
stand body,
I don't think a bucket truck is on anybody's bucket list, but that's okay.
bucket lift.
Oh,
Sorry, I always thought I was saying. And then the roadside mower.
To be fair, in conversation with the DPW, these are items that are needed for safety and for operation. But
Yeah, and also just to remind everybody, when we did the streetlight project, we took over responsibility for the street lights. And so Gary needs a way of getting there. He currently rents, and that, I don't know how much that is, but
so he would
it's a long
prioritize
delay.
the dump truck with the sand body, which is connected for a $210,000 cost, and he would push the bucket truck and the roadside mower as wants. The bucket truck is important for employee safety though, so I don't want to just punt it. I do think it should be addressed at some point. And then there's 2 cruisers.
Before you leave DPW, so I'm not clear on which ones you're advocating then. Sand body, you said is number 1,
Dump truck.
And
Yeah, they go together.
they go together.
and the dump truck. So those are the 2 you're recommending to.
If you were going to kick, those would be prioritized as 1 and 2, and then
Okay.
bucket truck 3, roadside mower 4.
Okay.
Can I, wait a second, why are we talking about 24? What happened to 23? Why are we not talking about salt shed and the roof?
You already paid for that. We already
We're
bought.
in that. We're in
We're
23.
in 24.
23.
Kind of, but I don't want to confuse this too much.
Oh, well,
MFC has funds for these things. Some of them might appear on capital plans in the future if those funds run out.
We're working on it. We're in the house doc.
okay.
Get on this.
All right. I just, sorry, because I knew it hadn't been done yet, so I was just worried that, so, okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then there's 2 cruisers in here. I think that's always a discussion point, whether or not you need 2 in this year. And then
Yeah.
the IT upgrades that I'm suggesting, I think that number is high, given all the other constraints in the budget. we do need to start replacing our computers. 25,000 every year would make a significant dent. The idea was to get a lot of it done this year. So if you took a lot of that out, you're closer to 600,000 than.
Can we go back to the CPS? So you took one item and suggested ARPA, but there's a few other items. Have they prioritized their list?
This is heavily prioritized by the school committee,
Meaning in the order as presented?
meaning these items are operationally necessary, or mission critical.
All of them, not in rank order. So freezers and cameras, everything's even is what you're saying here.
They removed about 1.3 million from their original request to get down to these mission critical items.
So, but let's see, okay, you're still only talking about the 24
Mhm.
column? Okay,
Okay, so you're saying for CPS 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100.
He's got a
140.
total at the Bottom of the.
Well, no, I want to go, but he's taking some things at 140, 140, you confuse me now. 10, 20, 100, 140, 190. So 190K of X, the ARPA elevators, what they're saying they need. Then you're saying that if we took the top two of DPW, you're at 212, right? The two things, 180, 32, one cruiser at 60. And IT at 25. Is that your list?
You got two cruisers, don't you?
Well, I thought he advocated stripping one out.
Could do with one.
Well, we're trying to strip out
I'm
here.
not, I'm saying, I'm trying to react to the sticker shock being too high. These are all things that need to be paid for at some point. So whether you do it in 24, 25.
Well, we typically buy one cruiser a year, don't we?
don't we?
Two.
I too.
One-
Once-
We had one year where we bought 1.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. And a 1.5 the next year for a total of 3. So, but I think all of these are certainly, in terms of what the ARPA set out to do for when they wanted to make recommendations to us, was that one time, capital expenditures would be a great use of that money. So certainly, I think there's no reason not to think that this should be.
I'm trying to keep this at the heart. So my recommendation would be the MFC has some targets in FY23 that it's not going to get to. Its funding is going to run out for those. You should reserve some of the ARPA to overcome those costs and make sure that the FY23 stuff doesn't pop up back again in 24, 25.
Oh, because the money will get returned. It wasn't
The
spent.
money will be returned to the town.
Yeah.
Right, because nothing was
It
bonded.
wasn't actually, is it already in free cash till you spend it or it's been so it'll come back to free cash?
Yeah,
It will, but you have more projects than you can
yes.
fund. So then the projects. will
Can
be-
we? I was just gonna ask, can we pay for studies for police and fire out of the MFC money that might go away?
I'd have to ask Kelly.
No,
I don't think so.
no, not the way the warrants are written. It's only for the maintenance and,
Are any of those sunsetting now or in a year from now? you're saying?
Yes, but we're gonna spend enough to not sunset any. 700 will carry. And we have the same problem next year. So then the warrant articles, some more. The Conservation Commission is considering $58,000 between the Cranberry Bog NOIs and the invasive plants.
Yep.
That may or may not be for this year, so that's definitely worth confirming before it becomes a recommended warrant article.
excuse me, can those not be covered by CPA money?
They were not included in the. They were not included in the timeline that was given.
Well, that could be done in the fall because that's not really I don't see spending
I highly agree.
new tax
Yeah,
money
so,
revenue,
only
when
one
there's
we-
that money that's sitting there for their use.
Right, the one we know we can't use is, for the Greeno barn, yeah.
Yes, that I understand, the
Yes.
Greeno barn, but,
Yeah. But you're right, the others.
the other ones absolutely should be paid with CPA money.
I agree with that.
So then the final question that we have is, let's say you do shave all of this free cash. Then those problems aren't going away. So there needs to be some direction to me, to staff, the finance committee to okay, you freed up all these funds to have them, but they're gonna be in your reserve, which is already at a level. What is the plan moving forward to use it?
Well, we have a
could
stabilization
offset-
fund that needs to be filled also.
But that is for spending on things and evening out costs. So even if you put it in
Well-
stable, you're basically just putting it in a fancy, not spending it. And you need to figure out what you want to spend it on and spend it.
Yeah,
There'll never be a shortage of things to spend money on. I think I like what Kate said. If CPA is sitting there and it's just a timing issue, then make it go away, right? Why spend our?
there's no reason why it can't be.
Last thing we should do is spend it. We should spend all sources before we spend free cash, right? We should make sure we flush ARPA, we flush grants, we flush CPA, right? We should use all the things that are there. In my opinion.
And doesn't free cash going up just mean that maybe we're not being really good at deciding what we can do? And therefore we're charging a higher tax than is necessary?
Yes.
It's partly because we haven't had enough staff to see that a lot of these projects actually get done. And so instead of doing them serially, many of these maintenance HVAC things, I think, should be done in parallel. There's no reason why we're doing one building at a time when they all have the same needs. They should be all done.
Except we have limited resources for that, right? And in this
Now
case,
we're-
it's limited staffing, it's
Resources.
limited staffing resources.
Now we do, yeah.
Gained, we have increased our resources because Ryan is working on this house doctor who's going to, you know,
And Julie.
in Julie and who
Yes.
provide the support to get these things done. Whereas the committee, like the MFC, just couldn't get enough traction to get it done. Now we are on a different path, I think.
Yeah.
And not having been on.
But is your priority to make sure you spend the stuff that might sunset first and then get to the new stuff, or you want to do it all at? What's the capacity, I guess? I'm not,
Well, we're trying to spend the existing things that have been.
right.
But
That should be the priority, right?
It
So
is.
these are new things, right?
As long as the funds don't run out, which they probably.
Yeah. Mind you, one of the things was backfilled with ARPA, so that the MFC already had money for basically, and that was the RTU and the library, but you know. Anyway, that doesn't matter. There were still other
think-
projects MFC needed the money for, that's why.
This is I think, more integrated conversation because as you move to having Steve Kinnearney and, you know, a whole group in charge of this rather than the MFC,
Yes.
things are getting done a lot more effectively and efficiently.
Yeah.
And you'll see that, I think, over the next 12 months or even sooner. You're already seeing, it, or I'm
All
seeing.
right, so how many, okay, so you've got the backlog of stuff that you have to finish, but that's not even on this list, right?
23.
So
Oh, okay, so all the 23 things, and then.
Plus
you've-
ARPA.
Go ahead,
Yes.
right. Well, right, then you have, CPA, let's say, let's assume those top three, they just all go to CPA in different times. Then you got a couple 100,000 down here, we agree, Green Owl Barn, and we really didn't talk about chart of accounts, but let's lump all that together, that's a couple 100,000. And then you have all this other stuff. How much of all this other stuff
get that.
can you get done? Like, we should only authorize what we think we can get done.
I wish I had the MFC here. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that? I
Yeah,
mean,
we're gonna get it done.
okay.
884,000 worth
If
or
you commit to that and you can do it, Ryan, with, especially now with Steve and how that's structured, then yeah, then we'll get it done. And I'll make a point of saying that at the MFC.
I guess my general point is the point of having free cash is the flexibility of free cash. But if you're not gonna use it, it doesn't have any utility.
Yes,
If you, there's no point in having flexibility if you're not being flexible for something, like
Mm.
fixing a large town problem.
So I got again, from the website, I got the
Our website.
10-year plan, our website. And it shows that, let's see, the first column's 24, right? So,
Heavily updated, but
right, but $2.5 million of stuff and then $2 million of stuff, and then we take a breather and then $1 million of stuff and blah, blah, blah. So where'd all that stuff go? Because it's still gonna be there and we're still gonna need free cash in the out years.
it's been pushed. It's been pushed at the request of town officials who want to see the number smaller. So it just
Right.
gets pushed.
But eventually it comes up. And so why not have a lot of free cash available to do that stuff?
Yes. Okay. As long as when it comes up, the answer is we're gonna do it.
Well, that's why, I mean, you've made the point, right? Our capital plan, you used a certain word I won't repeat here, but it needs help. And
It needs to be real.
it needs to be real and multi-year, right? You gotta take, it's hard to, it's kind of like our discussion about fire station, police station. Like we're doing this blind man and the elephant thing on a single year basis. It would be good to know the next few years of need to answer the question of how do we spend the largesse that we're fortunate enough to have in extra free cash?
I see the symptom of the capital plan as something that you should really consider, which is your departments tend to request more than they need and more money than they need because they don't think that you'll fund things.
Right.
So it's not that the need has gone away, it's that they have been conditioned to say, I need to.
Right, but you wire brushed it, right? I mean, the school committee said we need these few things. Gary said, these are my 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. So you've done that.
That's the symptom, the actual problem.
I get it, but I'm just saying,
That's why you have bad buildings. That's why you don't.
okay. So but don't compound the problem by giving us a 2024 snapshot without giving us 25, 26, 27, 28, right? I have no idea what's to the right of this chart. And therefore, how much free cash we should use this year compared with next year.
But when we said there was $1 million in real costs, the main response that I got from this board and the finance committee was make that smaller. But even if you make it smaller, it doesn't mean the problem went away. It just means you pushed it to the right. So the commitment needs to be to make the 10-year plan real.
Okay, so for me
You
personally,
want to see the 10-year plan.
well, I'm saying I'm willing to commit. He's giving me a chicken and egg argument. I'm willing to commit to, personally, I'm just speaking for me. I'm willing to commit to spending down that extra free cash on much needed capital items. But the question that we're raising is why spend all, $1 million of the $1.4 million like this year when we don't know what 25 and 26 look like? It would be better to see at least a few years of it so that we know how much we can comfortably. It's not, I agree that it's a bad system and we all suffer from it, but it's not that we don't want to spend the money. It's that we're not sure we want to spend all the money without knowing what's coming down the pike. That's why we're conservatively hoarding it. And we're over hoarding, I get it, but it's like too dramatic. We should see what the next couple of years hold for us to be able to decide. Maybe the 800,000 is correct, but maybe we don't need two cruisers. Maybe the mower does wait a year. I have no basis of evaluating that.
Yeah, I agree. You need to have a 10-year plan. You don't. Okay. You have a 1-year plan.
But you could have a 3-year. I mean, I know, but we have a budget coming up. I mean, you could identify the next column, right? It's sort of here. It just needs to be scrubbed.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so where are we?
I just want to say, I think this has been a fabulous discussion.
No, it's,
Very helpful.
it is. It's been a good discussion.
Well, no, I think, actually, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. I think it sounds like we have consensus around the operational budget and use of 150,000 of free cash. It sounds to me, and I don't want to,
For the operation.
150,000 of the free cash to make the operational. We've prioritized the operational budget,
We haven't really settled about
the coordinator.
that coordinator.
Okay, so that's,
I haven't heard from other folks, David, besides Kate, about the other items on here, the health insurance, wage analysis. So right.
You're right.
I guess for me, it really comes down to what the big picture is. And I'm not saying it's got to be a 10-year plan or even that much detail on next year plan, but knowing in this year, if we were to decide all the warrant articles, if a warrant article goes, town meeting decides what it is, all of that's going to have an impact on the budget, and having a good solid understanding of what are we going to be able to spend out of this year's budget and what might have to be pushed into a future year. I think all of that is just something, it's hard to decide, is it 3.5 or 3 or 2.5 COLA without knowing really what is the bottom line, because all of this, again, is pushing obviously conservative numbers, but it's pushing us over that already $550 a year increase in taxes, which is a large increase.
Well.
So I don't feel comfortable going through and saying, okay, yeah, we can do the COLA. Because I don't know how we're spending all the rest of that money, whether it's future, whether it's a 3-year plan or not, just understanding like really definitively, what are we going to be using free cash for? What are we going to be using CPA money for? We don't want to spend all CPA now because we may want to do housing in the future. And so I just think we need to be careful as to where we're funding these things and have a really good understanding of that before saying, yes, we want to do this, and yes, we want to do that. Generally, I think they're all great ideas. I support them all. It's just a prioritization when we see that bottom line number.
I think, Nathan,
No, it's not, because we've just kind of glossed over all of these things, right?
No, I think it doesn't push us over the 518 increase.
Tax, yeah.
If you use ARPA and free cash, is that,
That's correct. And CPA.
and CPA?
That's correct.
So it keeps it at, so you can have all those things, all of the things, if you use 100, and actually, if you just accepted all of those things, including the sustainability, instead of being 150, it'd be $200,000 of free cash. 126,000 of cut expenses that Ryan has identified, and then
Using the free
using
cash
more
above
free
the
cash,
12%.
CPA and money for the warrant articles, many of the warrant articles, ARPA for the.
Okay, then maybe I misunderstood that. So what we're talking about is all of these things, including all the capital items and everything, would be paid for by cash. We wouldn't borrow for any of them.
No.
Yeah, no.
Was that a yes or a no?
But it's spending.
I wouldn't
money.
recommend borrowing.
That's right. So the answer to that, your last question is actually yes, that we would not borrow for anything.
What were you about to say?
Interesting.
No, okay. So one, a different way to frame it, Nathan, might be to say, we want to keep the average tax bill at X amount. And then we say, we do want to fund X, Y, and Z. What does that then mean we're doing in terms of spending? How would we do that with the funds that we have available to us?
Yeah, so along that line, that 550, I'm just trying to get back to the page.
Yeah.
Was there like a percentage increase there? What is that percentage increase? It's
$500,
1 or 01 or.
no, I got a different number. I got 3.25. Great, 518, 6,448 over 15,930 is 3.25.
okay.
And the historic, I did the numbers there, the historic, so if you're looking year over year using these numbers, so fiscal 20 over 19 was 2.7%. Fiscal 21 over 20 was minus 2.7%. But I think that was during the COVID where we played
Right,
some
where we did
games.
everything.
So they kind of zeroed themselves out. Then 22, 15,438 over 15,164, 1.8%. Following year fiscal 23 last year, 3.2%. And we're kind of in line with that, 3.25%. So we're right in that over the threes, which is yet another question. And again, I mean, we're gonna have to close this out today because we're gonna just run out of time, but given, the latest kerfuffle, which I agree is a minority of people, but it's a noisy minority. What kind of percentage are we comfortable with? Just as a percentage, because people will look at that. And I don't know. I mean, I tend to look at percentages Ryan, and it sounds like Nathan focus more on the actual dollar that the average house sees,
you-
but either way, I mean, we should.
No,
come-
for me, it would be percentage. I was just, it just on this, it
I
was
mean,
a
nobody's
dollar
average,
amount.
right? So I think the percentage to me is important. I mean, Prop 2.5 is there for a reason, right? It's a long time reason. 2.5% increase is just enough to kind of survive and not enough to get like fat. And so towns like us, we're no different, have survived by new growth and other things to make that 2.5 bigger, right? Because you always have bigger. And we're in a pretty low growth time in terms of new starts, and we have these other pressures. You know, I'm okay with 3%, but we need to be comfortable as a percentage of what we want to sort of bracket that tax increase to be.
How much is 1% of COLA? Is it, let me see.
What did you say
Yeah,
before?
50
1% COLA is,
Close to 100% because, I mean, 100,000
yeah.
because
yeah,
of your floor COLAs in your contracts.
So, well, because, wait a second. So it's not like you can't say it's like, you can't give me a percent, or a dollar amount per percent.
Sure you can, sure you can. It's a
About-
third of the 160.
That's what I thought. Okay,
yeah.
It's not quite, but yeah.
all right. So
Correct.
that's 56,000. Well, and so a 0.5% is only 25,000 or so. So I don't know that it's worth giving 2.5% COLA for 25,000.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's suffering and.
Everybody, yes,
I
exactly.
mean, that's the thing I can tell you from, many years of negotiating with unions is that's the thing people look at the most, right? Because that's really what you use to fill your gas tank and all that things.
Well, it is, although it is the least amount of money in their pocket. I mean, it's it's only a couple $100 at the end of the day. So that's why, because it's only 0.5% of their,
I know, I get it.
salary. So.
Do we know, do we have an idea where the state's gonna land on their COLA?
That's a good question.
We'll know on March 1st.
Okay.
And where, do we know where they were last year?
That's, can we just look it up?
Yeah.
Let me.
I just wondering, Rhode Island just did theirs, I think in January, and it was 2%. I'm not suggesting that's what we do. I'm just wondering what the
Yeah.
state is doing.
Effective. Oh, well,
What do we want to get done here? But
Yeah, I'm just thinking, so
Yeah,
we're-
I guess, so for me, the bottom line would be, I support all of these things. I really do. I support the sustainability. I support them all, but I really just, reserve the right to change my mind based upon where we actually end up and where we're pulling the money from in the end.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, the next meeting is a joint one with FinCom. But I think we as a board need to have some clarity about saying to the FinCom, these are our priorities, whatever
Yeah.
those are. And also if we're in agreement that we're comfortable this year, using free cash beyond what we might have done in the past because of the increase in our share of school expenses, then we need to be able to say that. And similarly, if we are committed to keeping the tax burden basically at 3% or whatever number we arrive at, to be able to say that. So.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
I would, quarter of, almost 10 of 10. So and we didn't even cover HR. This is really important. And I agree with Nathan, it's very substantive. And I think it's important. We originally planned to have this kind of discussion with FinCom, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did, because I think that's even more variables.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had the chance, and this is really the first chance we've had as a board to deliberate about these things, and it takes a lot of absorption. I would be comfortable if we did two things. Ryan went back and produced maybe a 3-year capital spend, the next 2 years included, so we can see what that looks like. And have a shorter, but a very focused session like next week,
Mm-hmm.
and go back at this after we've thought about it with that information. And by the way, we can do the HR bylaw then, because I think I'm pretty tired right now. My brain,
Next week is school vacation week and I'm gonna be gone.
can we, okay, well, we,
Not that,
I mean, it's got to be before the 28th, right? So
Yeah, which would mean,
town hall's open
Either-
except for President's Day, right?
yeah, But-
Yeah.
we'd either have to try to meet, what's today, Monday, so we could actually meet this
Could meet later this week,
Thursday, for example.
yeah,
same
which
night
is when
that FinCom
FinCom,
is
I'm
meeting.
okay with that.
Or we could squeeze in a meeting the Monday night before our meeting on the 28th. Right, would meet
Yeah,
on the
either of
27th,
those,
that's-
I'm, okay.
I mean, that's,
My preference would be maybe this week, while it's still
Yeah.
fresh in our minds, so.
28th, don't we already have a?
We have, but we're meeting with FinCom, so
Okay.
the point is,
saying we could do
before-
it the.
we need one more hour. I think we need one more hour to make these decisions. And say, okay, we've
Yeah.
thought about it and we can talk to Fin.
I agree. And I think, yeah, I
So,
agree.
let's see quickly,
I
how many
prefer
people
a
could do,
Thursday, I can't do. the
Yeah.
Monday.
so Nathan, how about for you on this Thursday evening?
This Thursday evening. The
How-
16th. I could do. Sorry, just have a lot of calendars to look at. Hold on. This Thursday is the 11th, right?
16.
No, it's the 16th.
You must
Oh,
be
I'm sorry. That's
wrong
May.
calendar.
That's May. That's May. Okay. Thursday.
talk about getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah, I was putting in the town meeting. I could do this Thursday.
Great.
Okay.
I can do it.
And Travis, do you have a question about that?
The time.
Yeah,
How long are you?
well, should we say 7 to 9, just to block out the time, and maybe we get done earlier?
Yeah,
If we have to do the HR bylaw, which, we should.
right. I think we should do the HR bylaw then too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
7
finish
to
up.
9 on Thursday?
Yeah, I
Do
mean.
we need to get this
6
posted
to 8.
tomorrow?
Shoot for an hour and a half. Like-
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that.
Because if
We
tell
could
her-
try 7 to 8 for the finance and then 8 to 8:30 on the bylaw.
Yeah, or 6 to 7 and 7 to 7:30. But you
I
have,
can't get here in time for
7's
6.
early,
I'd
but-
rather be here in purpose.
okay, let's do that.
I mean,
I don't know,
person.
I may have to be remote if I have to pick up my son, but that's okay. I can do
All
that.
right, so we're saying 7 PM on Thursday,
all hybrid, right?
and we're trying to go,
Hybrid.
hour and a half, 7 to 8:30. Okay.
Would you,
Ryan,
does that give you
for
time?
you? Yeah.
The only thing is I have FinCom sometime.
Oh.
Uh,
Gee,
Yeah,
don't you know how to
that's fun.
be in two
Yeah.
places at once?
FinCom scheduled from 7:30 to 9.
Well, we can't do Wednesdays, not enough time. Right.
Yes, that's the problem with this
Right,
48-hour
Monday,
business.
yeah. Thursday, Friday's no good, so next week you're out, obviously you're away, so.
A different continent.
Different kind of, yeah.
Um,
All right, let's go to your 27th.
could we do a Friday this Friday morning, an early conversation, say it, I don't know.
I can't.
Okay,
I want to be able to look at the numbers, and even early Friday morning, I'm gonna be driving.
yeah. okay.
You, Ryan, would Thursday give you enough time to look at the next 2 years of capital?
The problem remains that it's highly dependent on the other boards and committees to refine their plans.
Right.
I know, but don't you have enough
Yep.
knowledge?
We have a
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah, well, I guess it's okay. We're not holding you to it. It's an order of magnitude thing. So let's look at the 27th again.
But we're meeting on the 28th.
I know, but this would give us a chance for us to solidify.
I'd be more apt to be remote next week and do something remotely.
You'd rather do remote next week than wait
I
till the
can't-
night
well,
before.
I can't, the 27th, I have a work commitment.
Yeah, okay.
What time zone are you gonna be in?
I'll be back here. With the permitting.
no, but the next week.
I'm gonna be head and we'll be in Austria.
That's bad for you then.
Yeah,
That's not a-
well, no,
That's a bad luck. That's,
Well, let me ask another question. Nathan, is there any chance you could join a meeting Thursday night at 6:30? We went from 6:30 to 7:30 before the FinCom meeting.
Let's see,
That's Thursday, this Thursday, the 16th.
the 16th. Yeah, yeah, if Travis and I can see if we can push the contract discussion out, then that gives me time to drive here. So I could potentially do that.
It's gonna be remote, Nathan.
The contract discussion.
No, this,
Yeah.
this meeting is supposed to.
but he wants to look at his numbers. He doesn't want to be driving.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be driving when I'm talking about the contract. So I think we could make that work somehow. Somehow I can make that work. Either I'm remote and then I'm driving, or I'm driving and we can make that work. 6:30 on Thursday.
I just want to make sure, so this is gonna be a remote meeting Thursday?
I was thinking in person for those of
Okay,
us that can
then that-
make it.
Ignore me.
Yeah, okay. And can Aubrey come to our meeting on Thursday and do the bylaw with us? So that, so we could schedule that for 7:30 when the FinCom meeting starts?
Yeah, I'm confirmed, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that then. Thank you,
Okay,
Nate.
so we're doing 6:30.
30 on Thursday. And Brian, if there's any way you can get us something, by the end of Wednesday, so people could take a look at it ahead of time, but if not, we'll go through it with you. On Thursday.
I could actually do 6 if you wanted to do 6, because if the contract discussion is remote, that still gives me 2 hours to get here.
How about Travis and Kate? Does 6 work for you?
I'm good.
Whatever you want.
I don't have anything
All right,
after
let's make
lunch.
it 6 o'clock. I know. All right, let's say 6 PM on Thursday and
This room's available?
Okay, and
and then
you've got to get it.
will you make
posted.
sure it gets posted? Is Jen around or? Okay. So it's right, because it needs to be posted tomorrow, right? And we'll go 6 to 7:30.
Get it done.
Okay,
Get her
All right.
done, yeah.
good.
I mean, we're not getting
So-
it. done. We're locking down some consensus
Sure.
opinion
Yeah,
so we can present to.
I agree.
okay.
agree.
So let's
Uh,
let's
I just
yeah, go ahead,
wanted
Nate.
to repeat. I just wanted to repeat. I'm sorry because it's hard to see you, so I don't know when it's okay to talk or not. But I just wanted to repeat what I said before, and I think that David actually said the same thing as me. I think this discussion was really great. We have not had this kind of discussion before. I want to thank Ryan for all the time he put in to put these numbers together because it made this possible.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ryan.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yeah,
Yes,
we all agree with that.
amen.
Amen.
Sure.
All right. So Ryan, now you have the pleasure of trying to do your TA report in 4 minutes. No,
No.
give you a little
no
extra.
pressure.
No, and that go to page, where are we in our, packet? We are down to page 30.
All right, so
Anyway,
the,
Go ahead,
you
please,
see
Ryan.
the Clark
thanks.
room, the 1-button hybrid meetings, we're hoping that folks and boards will use
43.
this. You just plug in and go and it all shows up, which is very helpful.
The
This over
owl?
here, this setup over here is a owl camera plus what you see here on the screen, which is hybrid. So you can bring that up to the Heald room and have a public meeting up there as well.
Great.
That's a full camera and it can connect to the live stream and everything that we do here. For records management, that's just ongoing and continuing. For reorganizing town hall, we've gone through everything with IT. And we continue to get solutions and hone in on moving people. So one of the main triggers for moving employees will be the hire of our assistant treasurer collector will be upstairs. So when that person is hired, they will be placed where they're going to be permanently, and then you'll start to see a lot of shifting, especially the building department moving into the Nichols room. And then moving on to updates from Aubrey with the ATA on HR. The dispatch candidate should come before you on the 28th. The Board of Assessors is meeting with their final candidate tomorrow and have told me that they will have a selection tomorrow
Excellent.
that we will be bringing to you. Well, that won't come to you, but we'll give you some news on it on the
Yeah.
28th.
Hopefully it'll be somebody who can hit the ground running.
Chief of Police, they are meeting tomorrow morning,
8:30.
8:30 to go over candidates. So that should be moving pretty fast now that we've
Oh.
entered the pool side of the equation. Talked about Jim Hall. And then bylaws we're skipping, right? So we do have we have extended an offer to a assistant treasurer collector candidate, just waiting for finalizing that, and we'll bring that to you on the 28th. I can tell you that the person that we've selected, and seems like they want to come work here, as a highly qualified person, someone that can really take on a lot of the responsibilities in that office and help him focus on some of the stuff that you're seeing in our requests here, like the chart of accounts and financial policies and things that finance directors normally do. So it's a big win if we can pull it off. If we can, it'll come to you on the 28th. Talked a lot about finances. I'm not going to talk anymore about that. The procurement, we are procuring firearms, library PFAS system. We have more than a dozen applicants for the house doctor services, which is good news. The DSC, which is Bill Rizzo, Steve Hinton from the MFC, Stephen from the schools, Julie, John, Kate from the select board, and myself. I'll be reviewing those, and we'll let you know who's going to be our on-call services. We have very, very good candidates. I've worked with a lot of them personally. Julie's worked with a lot of them personally, so it's gonna be a win, I think.
Good.
And then I'm working with the Recreation Commission on their field maintenance bids, so those should be back on March 1st as well. So I'm glad to be able to work with them. It was a pleasure working with them on that. And then Kim, Kelly, and I are working on our procurement process generally to have just better forms, better flow, and a policy to come before you in the next couple of weeks. Small bridge grants, we got our notice to proceed from the state for work on Maple Street and Curve Street. Many of you are probably tracking this already. For those of you who aren't, we're going to get some bridges from the state for free. So we will be working to start that procurement process this spring, hopefully to start the work in the summer. We have until the following year, but we want to get ahead and try and get that done. We're picking the summer months because of travel should lessen some of the impact on either project is longer than 2 months, so it won't be too big of an impact.
I had one quick question on that. When I was reading the plans, originally we asked for wood and then we couldn't get that, but then we said at least we wanted Core 10 and I don't think we got that. And remind me, Nathan, if you remembered, didn't we have it brown painted or anodized or something? And I don't remember seeing that in this latest set of plans. So I'm just want to make sure that we don't end up with ugly aluminum border. So,
Right.
It's there and they know your question's coming because they were like, we got the thing that.
okay, good. That's,
Okay.
because I didn't, as I
Good.
said, I didn't see it in the spec this time, so. And I was looking for it. Okay.
Some quick recognition for our employees. So Facilities Director, Stephen C. from the school Stephen has built out a ticketing system for work orders for facilities that we'll be training folks on in the next month. And then he's the one that got the doors switched, right? So he's paying his worth. Steve and Stephen are meeting tomorrow to really flush out that relationship. So we built capacity and now we're working on moving towards a viable town-wide facilities department. Mark Pauly, who some know, some don't, is our cable production manager for Concord Carlisle Cable. He's the architect and the mastermind behind all of this, was instrumental, and then sat here and watched them install it and made sure it was done correctly. So I just wanted to recognize him as someone who has helped the town. And then Jim, Scott, Shane, and Bob helped me move all cabinets and furniture. It was fun working with the DPW crew. They're a bunch of great guys and really help out here. Everyone at Town Hall loves them. The only thing of interest in terms of scheduling is I am taking a vacation day on the 21st. This follows the holiday.
Liberal.
Taking that day to ski.
Too easy.
And then here is the
Agenda.
draft
with,
agenda.
Right.
We did anticipate a lot of these would spill over, so we said we're gonna talk about it again on the 28th.
The
Yeah,
idea is we can deliberate and then cogitate and then make a vote decision after we've.
Yeah.
But we still need that hour, that
Yeah.
extra hour.
maybe put ARPA on there if you want the money for the phones to be,
We do.
yeah, so put, you know,
Squeeze it in.
ARPA on there, okay.
yeah, so that we know we're on there and
Yeah.
then we'll get our work done.
Cool, very good. Oh, two, very good, Ryan.
Okay.
I like it.
Any other comments, questions? As I said, there are no minutes to review.
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
approve.
View the warrants, no, I looked at that.
I do want to just very quickly with the Environmental Sustainability Committee, they are very, very interested in coming to before the select board to talk about the specialized opt-in stretch code. Yeah. Which is, we have a placeholder on the warrant. So sometime in March, I think we need to schedule that.
Okay.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Roll call vote, Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
well,
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
hey.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And
Good night,
Sean,
everyone.
thank you for
Yeah.
a great evening of much better technology.
I'm so
Yeah.
impressed.
Now.